Chapter 2376. When Xianxia did not mind the Wang family cultivator's attitude, as this was the self-restraint of a scholar. He looked around and breathed in the air. This was the cosmic tree realm. He had not had the opportunity to come here before, but now he was finally here. He looked at his body and wondered if his cultivation was about to break through. It made sense, as his cultivation had been stagnant for too long due to the lack of star energy. Originally he had been like Xianxia and the others, intercepting the cultivators from the cosmic tree realm who wanted to enter the fifth tower. However, Zhou Xian and the others had sealed off the path too tightly, and anyone with 4 or even 5 origin tribulations could not pass. Everyone was about the same age and the cosmic tree realm could not find fault with them. The fifth mainland did not need them to act, so when Xianxia had come, he was not the only one, as Xingkai, Lu Tianmu and Ling Gong had all planned to come as well. When Xianxia was the first person the Wang family cultivator had tried to rope in, but he had not gotten off to a good start. He spat, "Ignorant fool." At this moment someone else came up. Name: Nan Yanfei. Cultivation: Enlighter. The Wang family cultivator was astonished and he looked at Nan Yanfei. Another enlighter this young? Although he was not too outstanding in the cosmic tree realm, he was not bad either. He thought about what his family had told him and his tone softened. How much do you know about the Wang family? When Xianxia's matter had made him think that these people did not understand the greatness of the four-way scales. Nan Yanfei thought about it. The four-way scales rule the cosmic tree realm. It sits in the topmost realm and is backed by a progenitor. No one dares to provoke it. The Wang family cultivator praised. Well said, very well said. It seems like you understand the Wang family very well. Do you want to join? No, Nan Yanfei replied with 2 words. The Wang family cultivator was stunned. What did you say? Nan Yanfei repeated. No. You don't understand the Wang family. The Wang family cultivator did not understand and Wang Yan looked on as well. Nan Yanfei answered seriously, very well. He then took out a huge, clearly roasted wing from his cosmic ring. It was about half the size of a person and it gave off an alluring aroma. It was unknown what kind of creature it belonged to. Then why don't you want to join? The Wang family cultivator was confused as he clearly understood the greatness of the four-way scales. Nan Yanfei said, if I don't want to, then I don't want to. Can I leave now? He then walked towards Xianxia. What a joke. He had once been a realm ling from the 6th mainland, and the 6th mainland had a grudge with the 5th mainland, especially with the people from the Cosmic Tree clan. During the final battle, the 5th mainland and the 6th mainland had fought fiercely over the primeval surnames of the Cosmic Tree clan. How could he have dared to join them? Aren't you afraid of being killed? No cultivator from the 6th mainland could join the four-way scales. The Wang clan's cultivators had suffered consecutive defeats and were starting to lose confidence. What was wrong with these people? Name: Silver. Cultivation: Enlighter. The cultivator from the Wang family raised an eyebrow. Another enlighter at such a young age. What the hell, were there so many geniuses in the 5th mainland? Even in the cosmic tree realm, there were many enlighters who had reached the enlighter realm at a young age, but that did not mean that it was easy to reach. Do you want to join my Wang family? Wang Yan stared at it. Silver smiled brilliantly. The corners of his mouth curved up like a fox's, causing the Wang family cultivator, including Wang Yan, to panic. He just smiled there, not saying a single word. It was quite strange. The Wang family cultivator's face twitched. What are you smiling about? Silver was still smiling and his smile made the cultivator's back turn cold. He waved a hand. Go go go. Next. Name: Tai Yishan. The Wang family cultivator was speechless and looked at Tai Yishan. Did your parents give you this name? Tai Yishan raised his head. I don't need parents. I'm a god and I can create something out of nothing. Creating something out of nothing? The Wang family cultivator wanted to beat him up, but where did his arrogance come from? He was even more arrogant than the son of the four-way scales. Next name. He did not even want to waste time. Xinjiao. This time it was a woman and the Wang family cultivator relaxed. He always felt that there was something wrong with the cultivators in the wasteland. They either did not know what was good for them or they just smiled without thinking. It really was a wasteland. This woman should be more normal and she was not young either. Cultivation: Enlighter. The Wang family cultivator rolled his eyes. She was still an enlighter. Why did you come to this region of space? Little brother, I want to speak with your Wang family head. Xianxia smiled. The Wang family cultivator's eyelids twitched. Who do you want to speak with? Your Wang family head, Xianxia said naturally. I'm one of the directors of the Fifth Mainland's Hall of Honor, and I want to discuss some matters with the Wang family head on behalf of the Hall of Honor. The Wang family cultivator resisted the urge to curse, as he had never even heard of the Hall of Honor. The family head won't meet you. He then pointed in a direction. Go by yourself. Little brother, this matter concerns 2 regions of space. We need a reasonable plan for traveling between the Astral Tree Realm and the Fifth Mainland. As one of the directors, I need to draft a plan and submit it to the sect above the heavens. Little brother, please contact the Wang family head. Xianxia said patiently. She had no other choice. Ever since New Heaven's sect had been established, the Hall of Honor had lost all of its authority. She, as a director, had fallen from the heavens to the mortal realm, and it was very difficult for her to adapt. She had been trying to find a way to return to Lu Yin's attention and obtain a position in the Heavens sect, which was why she had come here. She wanted to see if there was anything she could do to attract Lu Yin's attention. The Wang family cultivator immediately chased her away. What nonsense are you talking about? Look at yourself. You want to meet the family head? Scram. Haizid Shenwei had been watching the entire time and he almost burst out laughing. What was the Wang family thinking? The first batch of people to come to the Astral Tree Realm had to be recognized by the sect above the heavens. These people all had some status in the Fifth Mainland, so how could they be easily roped in? Even if they wanted to join the four-way scales, they wouldn't dare to be so brazen. Wang Yan naturally knew this, but he had no other choice. The four-way scales hoped to use this method to rope in the Fifth Mainland's cultivators and slap Lu Yin's face. This would make Lu Yin fearful and prevent other cultivators from coming to this region of space. No matter what the outcome was, he had to do it. However, was there something wrong with these Fifth Mainland's cultivators? None of them seemed normal. On the Wang family's mainland, Wang Fan shook his head. Beside him stood Bai Ting, Xiaxing and Long Ku. These people won't join us. After all, they're the first batch that's been vetted by the Fifth Mainland. If they join us, it'll be too much of a slap to Lu Xiaoshuan's face. There's no need to look anymore, Wang Fan said. Bai Ting and the others exchanged glances as they watched the Wang family's cultivators try to rope them in one by one. Towards the end, they didn't even ask about their cultivations and just directly tried to rope them in. However, none of them joined the Wang family, which disappointed them. Let's go. No one will join us, Wang Fan said. Just as he finished speaking, an unforeseen event occurred below. I'll join. Remember, take me away. I want to join the Wang family. Bah. I don't care which family it is as long as you can take me away. Wang Fan and the others heard this and looked down. Someone actually dared to join? This was a slap to Lu Xiaoshuan's face in front of everyone. There were definitely people who wanted to join the four-way scales, but they shouldn't be the first batch. Within the valley, the Wang family's cultivator was at a loss. He had been rejected so many times that he was already used to it. He hadn't expected this person to be so eager to join without even asking. The Wang family's cultivator sized up the person in front of him. This was a fraud. A wretched old man appeared in front of Lu Yin. He was dressed in plain gray robes and carried a wooden flag. The front of the flag had the words Starsabil's Ninth Grandpa engraved on it, while the back had the words Fortune Teller, believe it or not. This person was Xianxia. Given Xianxia's relationship with Lu Yin, no one would stop him from being the first batch to enter the Astral Tree domain. Xianxia's goal in coming here was simple: escape from Lu Yin. The further the better. It would be best if Lu Yin could not affect him. He had almost coughed up blood before and he did not want to experience that again. He could not escape from the Fifth Mainland, so he could only come to this region of space. He had to get as far away from Lu Yin as possible and find a place with a progenitor as his backer. That way he might be able to avoid being affected by fate. Xianxia stared at the Wang family cultivator and said, "Little brother, I see that your complexion is rosy, and there's a faint purple aura coming from the east that flows down from your forehead to your chest. You must meet a benefactor today. Hurry up and bring me into the Wang family." I'll guide you on how to find that benefactor and break free from your original fate to achieve glory." The Wang family cultivator was stunned by his words and subconsciously replied, "You're a liar." Xianxia barked, "How could Grandpa Zhou be a liar? Go ask around and find out how famous Grandpa Zhou is in the fifth mainland. It's your fortune to be able to come to this region of space." The Wang family cultivator looked at Wang Yan for help, not knowing how to handle this. It would be great if a normal person was willing to join the Wang family, even if it was a very ordinary cultivator. However, this person seemed problematic no matter how he looked at it. Before Wang Yan could say anything, Wang Fan's voice sounded out. "Chase him away." He would rather not have this person than try to rope in a liar who seemed problematic. How embarrassing. The Wang family's doors were not that easy to enter. Wang Yan waved his hand. The Wang family cultivator pointed in the direction of Xianxia and the others. "Go by yourself. Go further away. Little brother, you must believe me. Grandpa Zhou's fortune-telling is the most accurate," Xianxia pleaded. He just wanted to hide in a place with a progenitor overseeing things. Who cared about his relationship with Lu Yin? He had clearly tried to rope him in. "Go, go, go, don't block the way," the Wang family cultivator said impatiently. Xianxia was angered. "You brat, don't be ungrateful. So many people from the fifth mainland have begged Grandpa Zhou to read their fortunes, but Grandpa Zhou disdained them. Fine, you don't want to accept Grandpa Zhou, right? Grandpa Zhou will read your fortune. Your Wang family is destined to achieve eternal glory and reach the peak." The Wang family cultivator frowned. "Flattery is useless. Hurry up and scram." Many of the fifth mainland's cultivators looked at them strangely. They all understood Xianxia. This old thing was always the opposite. If he said good things, then bad things were bound to happen. If he said bad things, then good things were bound to happen. Now that Xianxia was praising the Wang family, even Haizid Shenwei was worried for the Wang family. If this old thing could curse the Wang family to death with just his mouth, then he would be even more ruthless than a progenitor. Thank you for your support, brothers. The wedding date is November 9th. Thank you. Chapter 2377. Cultivators from the fifth mainland arrived at the cosmic tree domain one after another, which meant that it was destined to be lively. Back at the battlefield, Skymender Imperial Tutor answered tiredly, "No, not even one." Lu Yin fell into deep thought. He had asked Skymender Imperial Tutor to divine the fates but there was not a single grain in this domain. He naturally did not believe that Bai Xianer had obtained it. Then forget it. He looked at the fourth base. It was time to leave this place to Elder Chan and the others. Not long after, Lu Yin rode the caged Wurm out of the fourth base. Wan Ziyi and the others would leave as well, but he did not bring them along. He wanted to find the food paradise in the top realm and see if he could recover his memories there. The heavy chains clanged against each other and light footsteps slowly approached. Lu Xiaoge opened his eyes and his blurry vision appeared red against the lava. He was underground in the depths of Shenwu Plain, where the criminals of Shenwu Plain were imprisoned. They were surrounded by chains that were identical to the ones that had been intercepted when Lu Yin had tried to break out of Shenwu Plain. Even a half-martial ancestor would not be able to break free from these chains, so no one would be able to escape. The footsteps drew closer and closer. Lu Xiaoge panted heavily, but there were no injuries on his body. Shenwu Plain was not stupid, and they could tell that Lu Xiaoge had been abandoned by Lu Yin. They knew that Lu Xiaoge might even be Lu Yin's enemy, so they just wanted to obtain some information from him. Lu Xiaoge was very cooperative and he told them everything he knew about Lu Yin. Only 2 people had come looking for him during this time. The first was Xia Xing, the master of Shenwu Plain, and the second was the cultivator in charge of the interrogation. Now the third person had appeared and it was Xia Ziheng. Lu Xiaoge relaxed when he saw that it was Xia Ziheng. "You're finally here." Xia Ziheng looked at him. "You knew that I would be here?" Lu Xiaoge smiled. "There are very few people who can make decisions for me. Regardless of whether it's you or Sect Master Xia Xing, one of them will definitely come." Xia Ziheng calmly replied, "I don't like people who think they're smart, but I can give you a chance to guess why I'm here." Lu Xiaoge did not hesitate. "You need my help, or rather cooperation." "How?" Xia Ziheng clasped his hands behind his back and looked down from above. Lu Xiaoge looked up at Lu Yin like an ant begging for its life. "Lu Yin, or Lu Xian as you call him, has the power to cause you trouble. Although I don't know what he'll do, I'm guessing that you haven't done anything to him. Xia Ziheng frowned. You know him very well? Lu Xiaoge smiled. Did I guess correctly? That's right, I know him too well. Ever since I stepped onto the path of cultivation, I've known him too well. His methods of doing things, his psychological changes, I even know what he's thinking right now. So if you need my help, I can help you find his flaws. Xia Ziheng asked, then tell me what he's thinking and what he's going to do next. Can I know the situation in the outside world? Sure. Xia Ziheng briefly introduced the situation in the outside world. Lu Xiaoge pondered for a moment, then raised his head to look at Xia Ziheng. There are people around you. Xia Ziheng's expression changed. What do you mean? Lu Xiaoge asked. Lu Yin won't do anything that he's not confident in. He dared to lay his cards on the table, come to this region and even take over the defense of the fourth base. This means that he's already prepared for an all-out war with you. He definitely has people inside the four-way scales and there's more than one of them. He's confident in obtaining all of your information, and what he's best at right now is forming alliances. The four-way scales dominate the tree of outer space and the fifth mainland is unable to resist them. He'll think of a way to use this region as a fulcrum to move you and cause your power to be unbalanced. What will he do? Xia Ziheng asked in a low voice. They knew the old Zhou Xian, but they did not know much about the current Lu Yin. When it came to methods, only Bai Xianer could see through them. However, they had to be wary of both Lu Yin and Bai Xianer. Even now, in the eyes of the Xia family, Bai Xianer was a greater threat than Lu Yin. Even if Lu Yin was only a third tribulation cultivator and could fight against 4 half-ancestors, even if he could fight against a progenitor, he still could not compare to Bai Xianer's threat. This was why Bai Wangyuan was willing to let Lu Yin become a half-ancestor in order to protect Bai Xianer. It was also why the Xia family, Wang family and White Dragon clan had to compromise. Nothing could happen to Bai Xianer. This was the bottom line of the frozen immortal sect. The four-way scales were also competing internally, because only one family would be in charge of the fifth mainland. Lu Yin's threat made the 4 cardinal scales apprehensive, but the Xia family didn't just have to be wary of Lu Yin, they also had to be wary of Bai Xianer. Right now, the Xia family hoped to take the initiative in the face of Lu Yin's threat and throw his threat to the frigid immortal sect. Lu Xiaoge stood up, and his chains swayed as they clanged against each other. I don't know how much he knows about the Tree of Outer Space or how many trump cards he has, so it's impossible for me to guess his next move. But if it were me, he looked at Xia Ziheng, I would find someone you can't control to rebel against you. Apart from that, what else? Xia Ziheng was not surprised as the four-way scales had already guessed this. Lu Xiaoge said, Senior, you might not have heard me clearly. I'm talking about someone you can't control. It's not just the Nong family, the Lu family or Ghost Abyss. Xia Ziheng frowned. What do you mean? Lu Xiaoge thought for a moment. Survey the entire Tree of Outer Space and list out everyone you think is worthy regardless of friend or foe. See who you can't control. Right, that includes the Eternals. Xia Ziheng's eyes went wide. The Eternals? Lu Xiaoxian is colluding with the Eternals? Lu Xiaoge quickly denied it. I didn't say that, but that doesn't mean that he can't use the Eternals. As for how he uses them, that depends on his own methods, just like how the four-way scales banished the Lu family. Senior, are the Eternals not involved? As soon as he finished speaking, Xia Ziheng casually waved his hand, and a blade pierced through Lu Xiaoge's forehead. Lu Xiaoge's eyes widened and he stared at his bloodied eyes in disbelief. How could this be? Xia Ziheng stared at Lu Xiaoge. I've already said that I don't like people who think they're smart. Some things can be said and some things can't be said. Junior, you're still too inexperienced. Lu Yin's impersonation of Yu Hao had caused the Xia family to suffer greatly, and Xia Ziheng had also been punished by Xia Shenji. The reason for this was that he had guessed that Yu Hao was Celestial Master Gu Yan's disciple, and Xia Shenji had been infuriated. Now Lu Xiaoge had analyzed Lu Yin's actions step by step. In Xia Ziheng's eyes, Lu Xiaoge was slowly overlapping with Lu Yin. They were both cunning and smart, and Lu Xiaoge's last sentence had been the fuse. Just as Lu Xiaoge had said, he could not say or even think about it. Lu Xiaoge's death didn't affect the Xia family at all, and Xia Ziheng quickly forgot that Lu Xiaoge thought too highly of himself. Did Lu Xiaoge really think that the Xia family needed his help to deal with Lu Xiaoxian? How laughable. This was the Xia family, one of the 4 Libras. It had a deep foundation and a progenitor, so it wasn't a place where a junior who liked to scheme could act as he pleased. Not long after Xia Ziheng left, 2 cultivators from Xinwu Plain walked in to collect Lu Xiaoga's corpse. I thought that this guy wouldn't have to die, but he's still dead. There aren't many underground criminals who can be killed by Patriarch Xia Ziheng himself. This guy isn't ordinary. He was caught in Xinwu Plain while impersonating Yu Hao. I heard that Zhou Xian abandoned him. Who cares? Just throw the corpse into the lava and burn it. Fresh blood dyed the dark ground red, and it evaporated under the high temperature, causing Lu Xiaoga's corpse to be enveloped in a bloody mist. The 2 Sky of Xinwu cultivators opened the lock that locked Lu Xiaoga up. Just as they lifted up Lu Xiaoga's body, Lu Xiaoga suddenly moved and smashed their heads into the lava. The headless bodies also fell into the lava under his gentle push and were burned into ashes. These 2 cultivators were only explorers and they couldn't compare to Lu Xiaoga at all. Lu Xiaoga's body swayed. I'm really dizzy. He then looked in another direction where there was another person who had been chained up. At this moment, this person's forehead had a scar that was identical to Lu Xiaoga's. Night King Zhenwu's ability isn't bad, even though he's a little dizzy. Thanks, brother. Lu Xiaoga wiped away the bloodstains and then transformed into one of the cultivators who was collecting the corpse. I told you that I could escape, but you didn't believe me. How about it? I can escape now, right? Lu Xiaoga muttered to himself as if he was talking to himself, but also as if he was talking to someone else. The chains vibrated at a special frequency, and Lu Xiaoga's gaze followed the chains to the deepest part of the underground. There's a half-step progenitor watching? Is this for real? The chains vibrated again. Lu Xiaoga scratched his head. That's troublesome, but I don't have the key to help you open these chains. I saw it the other day and the progenitor who was with Lu Yin had to rely on external items to break the chains. The chains vibrated. It looks like you've been preparing for a long time. Alright, since Lu Yin attacked Xinwu Plain, we'll keep a low profile and sneak out, Lu Xiaoga said again. He then followed the vibrating chains and dove into the lava, heading towards the deepest part of the underground. Underground, a pair of eyes opened and a boundless gaze seemed to pierce through Xinwu Plain to see the sovereign realm. Xiaxinji, I'll look for you. Lu Yin rode the prison drake to the top realm, but he did not know that Lu Xiaoga had already escaped from Xinwu Plain. He did not feel any guilt towards Lu Xiaoga, as this was the law of cultivation in the universe. Powerhouses could kill and seize. Lu Yin was not a benevolent person, nor was he a good person. It was just like how he had been treated like a piece of white meat and thrown onto Drift Charge Planet. Those people had not felt any guilt either, as this was the reality. He could abandon Lu Xiaoga because Lu Xiaoga was not his friend, and Lu Xiaoga had not hesitated to betray him. They did not owe each other anything. Lu Xiaoga understood Lu Yin and Lu Yin understood Lu Xiaoga as well. Lu Xiaoga knew that if possible, Lu Xiaoga would do everything in his power to survive and gain the trust of Xinwu Plain to deal with Lu Yin. However, that was only for the sake of survival, not because of hatred. They were all too clear about the laws of survival in this universe. Chapter 2378. Could Lu Xiaoga really deal with Lu Yin? Lu Yin had already planted the Grim Reaper's seal in Lu Xiaoga's body, so he could ignore the half-ancestors and even some progenitors. However, Lu Xiaoga was someone who used his brain. Lu Yin guessed that it wouldn't be long before he saw Lu Xiaoga in divine martial heaven. The wireless goo vibrated from Jiuzi's eye. Lu Yin accepted the call. Daoist, someone is blocking us. We can't get close to the new sky corridor, Jiuzi's eye reported. Lu Yin asked, how many people are blocked? More than 100, and that's just in my direction. There should be more in other directions, and this is in the top realm. Many cultivators can't get here from the middle realm, Jiuzi's eye replied. Lu Yin ended the call. It seemed that the cultivators in the starry sky tree were interested in the fifth mainland, but they were blocked by the four-way scales. This wouldn't do, as the two realms needed to be in contact. Only the fifth mainland could come to the starry sky tree, but no one from the starry sky tree would go to the fifth mainland. In his plan, the starry sky tree and the fifth mainland should be one, not separate. After thinking about it, he contacted Wang Wen through the wireless goo. The four-way scales is blocking the cultivators of the starry sky tree from coming to the fifth mainland? That's great, I have another reason. I'm already here. How about it? Do you want to meet up and catch up? Wang Wen replied, sounding like he was in a good mood. Lu Yin asked, You're already in the starry sky tree? Yeah, the air here is great and the mother tree is spectacular. It's just that the top realm is too oppressive and I'm blocked whenever I raise my head. Oh right, I'm surrounded by familiar faces. When Xianxia and the others are here and there's even a director from the Hall of Honor. He wanted to contact the head of the Wang family, but he was chased out, Wang Wen replied with a smile. Oh right, the four-way scales wants to rope us in to slap you in the face. Lu Yin replied, the first batch won't be joining and they wouldn't dare. That's where you're wrong. There are people crying and begging to join the Wang family, Wang Wen replied. Wait, isn't my surname Wang too? Do you think I'm a member of the Wang family? Who knows, I might even be able to find my name in Wang Wen. Lu Yin's expression darkened. Who wants to join the Wang family? The first batch of people had been strictly vetted, and they were all people who were close to Lu Yin and would definitely not betray the Fifth Mainland. If there really were people who cried and begged to join the Wang family, it would indeed be a bit of a slap in the face. Of course, it would only be a loss of face, but Lu Yin did not want to lose this face. Whoever wanted to join the Wang clan would have to die. Wang Wen replied, Xianxia. Lu Yin was stunned and pursed his lips. You joined. No, the Wang clan didn't want him. He's obviously a scammer, Wang Wen replied. As soon as he replied, Xianxia rushed over and stared at Wang Wen with bloodshot eyes. Brat, Grandpa Zhou has been watching you for a long time. Don't think that Grandpa Zhou doesn't know how to play this game. Who are you calling a scammer? Wang Wen was speechless as he looked at the flustered and exasperated Xianxia and replied, the main culprit is causing trouble for me. To Xianxia. Wang Wen handed the wireless goo to Xianxia. Why don't you talk to him? Xianxia Yin looked at the wireless goo with uncertainty. He knew Wang Wen, so he knew who the other party was. It was definitely that trash Lu Yin. He wanted to curse this trash to death, but after thinking about it he didn't dare. It wasn't that he was afraid of Lu Yin, but rather that he was afraid of being tainted by fate. The more he interacted with this trash, the easier it would be for him to be tainted by fate. Grandpa Zhou won't waste words with him. Tell him that if he dares to touch fate again and cause me to cough up blood, Grandpa Zhou will bless him for the rest of his life. Wang Wen rolled his eyes. These words sounded pleasant, but they were actually cursing. Right, I got it. Xianxia snorted and turned to leave. Wang Wen told Lu Yin, but Lu Yin had no other choice. Tell him that if he really wants to join the four-way scales, I'll recommend him. Wang Wen rolled his eyes again. Recommend him? If he did, he would definitely be skinned alive by the four-way scales. These two fellows were pretty good at cursing each other, but they had never cursed each other like this before. Right, where's Wei Rong? Lu Yin was about to end the call when he suddenly remembered. Wang Wen looked in another direction where another group of people had been sent to the central plain. Just as Wang Yan had said, they were sent to different locations. Wei Rong was there as well. He plans to join the four-way scales soon. Oh, don't join the frigid immortal sect, Lu Yin reminded him before ending the call. Wang Wen and Wei Rong had both arrived, and even more cultivators from the Fifth Mainland would arrive soon. This region of space was becoming more and more lively. Lu Yin put away the wireless goo and looked ahead. Before he knew it, he had already arrived at May Mountain. May Mountain was the place that the old servant had told him about before his death. He had said that he had seen the food paradise fall here with his own eyes. May Mountain was very large, and its continuous mountain range was large enough to hide the astral river. Lu Yin released his domain and continuously extended it. At the same time, he distorted the void in an attempt to peel off space in order to find the food paradise. Unexpectedly, the food paradise was not difficult to find. He found a hidden space at the bottom of May Mountain's lake and entered it. There were too many strange things in the universe, and there were also too many strange places. There were all sorts of strange phenomena, and Zi had thought that she could accept them all until she arrived at this place. This was an island that was completely composed of food. It was not accurate to call it an island, but it did look like an island. It floated in a very tasty fruit-flavored beverage. The colorful beverage formed a beautiful lake, and rainbows often appeared under the illumination of the sun overhead. However, that sun was not actually a sun but rather a jelly. Jelly could emit light and heat, and it was very tasty as well. She had taken a bite of it. The soft soil beneath her feet was filled with slightly bitter biscuits. When the beverage lake rose and fell, these biscuits would solidify into all sorts of fruit-flavored biscuits, which were very tasty. The trees on the island were pieces of barbecued meat that had a unique texture. The branches were filled with snacks like potato chips, and the grass that grew in the wind would release bubbles. Some bubbles contained barbecued meat, some fruits, and some beverages. The mountain range in the distance would change according to the seasons. The season that left the deepest impression on her was summer, when the entire mountain range was filled with ice cream. Behind the mountain range seemed like a desert, but it was actually composed of all sorts of fried rice and noodles that gave off an enticing aroma. When it rained, there were all sorts of colorful candies and there were all sorts of tasty fish swimming in the beverage lake. As long as one fished them out, they would be turned into barbecued fish. Even the wind that blew past gave off a greasy smell that made one want to eat more. Z did not know how this island had been formed. No matter how strange the universe was, such an island should not have appeared. Were those fried rice and noodles not man-made? She did not see a single person. More importantly, she could not leave. It had been a few decades and her cultivation had increased quite a bit. There was no helping it as all she could do was eat and cultivate. She had put on weight, but she had not eaten all of the delicacies on this island. Furthermore, it was impossible for her to eat all of them. There was even a flower that could continuously produce all sorts of delicacies. She felt like she had seen a ghost. She sighed deeply. How much longer will this continue? She looked at the lake. It was very beautiful and it glowed with a rainbow light. Even so, this beauty had been the same for decades and she was getting tired of looking at it. The only person she could talk to was that person, but that person would only occasionally contact her. What if she could never leave? She looked at the lake in a daze. Unconsciously, she saw a person standing on the lake with a square object floating behind him. After some time, the person walked over from the lake step by step. As the person got closer and closer, Z blinked. Luin. She smiled bitterly. Why would she think of him? It seemed like she really was hallucinating. Decades felt like a day. If she could never leave, she would go crazy. Luin entered the food paradise, and the first thing he saw upon entering was Z sitting on the beach, staring at him in a daze. He was surprised. Z was here? Looking around, an incomparably familiar feeling surged into his mind. This familiar smell, this familiar environment, in an instant, memories kept appearing and disappearing. He stood in the same spot for almost an hour, hoping to recall what had happened in the past, but he still couldn't remember. Is this the food paradise? You came from the fifth mainland and the astral tree of trees appeared here? Luin asked as he walked over to Z. Z continued to stare at him blankly. You can talk. Luin looked at Z's lifeless eyes and casually patted her. Z immediately reacted and excitedly stood up, grabbing his shoulder. It's you. It's really you. Luin was confused. Are you crazy? Z was agitated and grabbed his arm tightly, as if she was afraid that he would disappear. How did you get here? Can't you leave? Of course, Luin replied and looked into the distance. The familiarity of the food paradise grew stronger, to the point where he was no longer curious about where the food had come from. Z did not want to know how Luin had gotten here. She just wanted to know how to leave. Luin frowned at her. Let go. Take me out. I don't want to stay in this damned place. Luin did not move, but Z was sent flying. This damned place. He looked around with a complicated expression. To some people, this is the most beautiful place. He then walked towards the food paradise. Z was not injured, and Luin would not harm her out of respect for the blood ancestor. She hurriedly stood up and followed him. Did you find this place on purpose? There's nothing on this island besides food. Luin ignored her and followed the familiar path into the depths of the food park. As he passed by the forest, he casually broke off a branch and ate the chips that grew on the branches and leaves. He ate the barbecued bark with relish and the grass on the ground began to bubble. He casually took a drink out of the bubble and took a sip, reminiscing about the taste. He walked out of the forest and looked at the distant mountains. The rich fragrance was becoming more and more familiar. Z was puzzled. This was clearly his first time here, so why did he seem so familiar with this place? Had he been here before? And wasn't that the general appointment platform floating behind him? Why was there a general appointment platform? Chapter 2379. Just like that, Luin walked in front while Z followed behind. The two of them walked to the center of the food park, where wine bottles were strewn all over the place. There was also a blooming flower with steaming hot dishes on top of it. Lu Yin walked over to the bottles and a memory surfaced in his mind. There had been quite a few people sitting in a circle laughing, drinking and talking loudly. He looked in one direction where Big Sis was sitting. Little Seven, drink less. It's time for you to enter the bridal chamber tonight. His gaze shifted to his second brother's seat. Eldest sister, our little Seven has grown up. He doesn't need us anymore. Second brother, don't talk nonsense. Come little Seven, I'll drink with you. Fourth sister, drink less too. Don't forget that your family is waiting to be comforted. It's not like you can only marry one. Little Seven, take she away later. I recorded it, I'll play it for Xianxia. Fourth sister, she's never liked you. Fifth brother, you're courting death. Don't cause any family conflicts. Little Seven, don't force Qi Ming to drink. His star is already dimming. He's so pitiful. That brat keeps provoking me. Why doesn't he provoke you guys? Little Seven, you're the best. Let him try and provoke me. Third brother, bury him in the soil. No, throw him into a wheat circle. He'll stay there for 10 years. Who dares to insult the eighth hero, Tu Qiming? Boss, someone's insulting me. Ha 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 ha. Ha. Everyone had gathered in a circle, laughing, drinking and giving their blessings. Lu Yin clenched his fists and his eyes had turned red at some point in time. This memory flashed through his mind like an image and it was clear as day. He remembered everyone's faces, what they had said, what they had done, and the blessings they had given him. At that moment he had felt warm. He had a home, a family, siblings and lovers. However, immediately afterwards, everything shattered. The scene disappeared and there was nothing left. When he came back to his senses, all he saw was a floor full of empty bottles. Where was everyone? Where had everyone gone? Lu Yin sat down. This was where he had sat in the past. In the distance, Zi looked at Lu Yin's back and felt very lonely. She didn't want to disturb him and no matter how many people walked by, they couldn't chase away this loneliness. He had definitely been here before and he must have done something here. Zi had been to this place before. When she saw the empty bottles on the ground, she thought that there were still people on the island. She had been vigilant for a long time but in the end she found no one. Lu Yin sat next to the empty bottle for an entire day, not moving at all as he tried to recall the happy times of the past. Unfortunately, he could only recall those people but he couldn't recall those happy times. The old servant said that there was something important to him here, but he couldn't remember anything. Have you walked all over this island? Lu Yin asked. Behind them Zi replied, yes, I've been here for decades. I've been everywhere. What did you find? It's all food. Nothing else. Lu Yin stopped talking. Oh, by the way, there's actually someone who occasionally talks to me but she's always the one who contacts me. I can't reach her. Zi suddenly thought of something. The last time I contacted her was 10 years ago. Lu Yin turned around with a deep gaze. Who is it? Zi replied. She said her name was Xianxia. Lu Yin's body suddenly appeared in front of Zi so quickly that she didn't even notice. She was shocked. What was this person's current cultivation level? She had been cultivating on this island besides eating, and with the abundant astral source, she had already broken through to become an emissary. Why did she feel as powerless as a child in front of this person? Take me to her, Lu Yin said in a low voice. Zi was stunned and frowned. Lu Yin, I'm not your subordinate. I only saw you like that because it's been too long since I've seen anyone and I can't find the way out. Before she could finish, she felt her brain tremble as an unparalleled pressure descended upon her. It felt like the sky was collapsing and the entire island was shaking. This pressure made it difficult for her to breathe, and she was powerless to resist as she squatted on the ground. She couldn't believe it. She had only felt this pressure from a half-ancestor before. Even a celestial imprint powerhouse hadn't given her such a shock. She could only stare at the ground, unable to raise her head. If she did, she would die. Take me to her, Lu Yin repeated, and his aura suddenly disappeared. The enormous pressure came and went quickly, and Zi coughed up a mouthful of blood. The sudden disappearance of the pressure was too much for her body to bear. She supported herself with her arms and slowly raised her head. For the first time she looked at Lu Yin with fear. She was afraid of someone her age, someone who had once needed to team up with others to resist her. When was the last time she had seen him? During the Supreme Tournament, even if this person had displayed the power of the Grim Reaper in the final battle and swept through everyone with absolute power, they still wouldn't have been able to feel such fear. Why was it so exaggerated now? Lu Yin looked at her calmly, looking down from above. Z wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said in a trembling voice, "I'll take you there." Lu Yin raised his head and looked into the distance. He had long since stopped caring about this woman. Z had once been one of the Dao Source 3 skies, and her source energy was endless and difficult to break through. Now this powerful enemy was like a piece of paper in front of him. He didn't even need to do anything. A single look from him could turn her to ashes. So what if she was an emissary? Z slowly stood up, coughing as she walked in a certain direction. She hadn't felt hurt in decades and she had even forgotten about it. The last time she had been injured was also because of this person. She wanted to ask how the Fifth Mainland was doing, but she didn't dare to ask. The difference between them was just too great. Z didn't walk quickly and Lu Yin didn't rush her. He was thinking about what was going on. If Bai Xianer could contact Z from the food paradise, what did that mean? It meant that she knew where this place was and that she could find the food paradise. When it came to Bai Xianer, there were many things that he should think of in the worst-case scenario. She could enter and leave the food paradise as she pleased, but where was she now? When he thought of this, Lu Yin became vigilant and prepared to use the rune lines from the commander appointment platform at any time. The miniature candlestick appeared on his shoulder, and Palm Realm battle force spread out from his wrists. He was ready to attack at any time. Z brought Lu Yin to an exquisite wooden house in the depths of the food paradise. It wasn't accurate to call it a wooden house but rather a water house. This house was made of water, and although it looked like flowing water, it was actually as sturdy as wood. Small fish floated by in the water from time to time, creating a beautiful and elegant scene. There were fences around the water house and there were probably some animals that had been raised in the past. Behind the fence was a large field of various vegetables, and it looked exceptionally peaceful. Even further away was a waterfall that flowed with a rainbow-colored liquid. Fish constantly swam up the waterfall as if they were leaping through the dragon's gate. Fruit trees grew on both sides of the waterfall, and they didn't just produce fruits, but also delicacies, sauces, and even meat. Lu Yin's eyes twinkled as he looked at the house in front of him, and a similar scene appeared in his mind. He saw a beautiful face smiling happily as she looked at him. Her gaze was filled with love. It was Bai Xianer. This was where he and Bai Xianer had once lived. "It's in the house," Zi said, standing in place without moving. Lu Yin walked forward step by step, raised his hand and placed it on the fence. He seemed to have done this action many times, and it brought back happy and comfortable memories. He pushed the fence aside and looked around. There had been rabbits, cats, dogs, and even porcupines here. He could almost see a beautiful woman squatting on the ground and smiling as she fed the animals. He suddenly looked at the forest as if something was coming over. Right, I remember now. It's a rainbow-colored deer. Every time I come back, a rainbow-colored deer would run out of the forest and shout at me, bumping into my arms. This was his and Bai Xianer's home. Aside from a few siblings, not even the Lu family had come here before. Lu Yin took a deep breath and walked towards the house. He opened the door and looked around. The house was very small, and the furnishings were exactly the same as they had been many years ago. He was very sure that there was the same wooden bed, the same dressing table, and the same table. He was very familiar with this place, and when he walked in he had the urge to live here for the rest of his life. This was his home. Right, he remembered why he had agreed to Bai Xianer's request to move the food paradise to Lu Tianjing. It was because of this place. They had gotten married and this was their home, not Lu Tianjing. That was why the family had agreed to move the food paradise there. This had been Bai Xianer's suggestion, and Lu Yin still remembered how much she had longed for it when she had first brought it up. "Brother Zhou Xian, can we not care about the outside world in the future? I just want to stay in the food paradise in our little house. Lu Tianjing is high and mighty, but that's not what I want." These were Bai Xianer's original words. Lu Yin clenched his fists. He finally remembered that she was the one who had said that she wanted to move the food park over. Everything had been a lie. What about wanting to stay here? What about having a home? What about not liking being high and mighty? There was a loud boom, and the water house was torn apart as Lu Yin's powerful aura swept away everything around him. Z subconsciously retreated, looking at Lu Yin as if he was a lunatic. Lu Yin panted heavily, his eyes bloodshot as if he was suppressing something. At that moment, there was a vibration from the dressing table in front of him. It hadn't been destroyed. Lu Yin looked at it and saw a cloud connection stone. He took a deep breath and accepted it. Bai Xian'er's image appeared. Lu Yin looked at her. She looked back at him. Brother Zhou Xian, what did you remember? Lu Yin stared at her. You were the one who suggested moving the food paradise to Lu Tianjing. You were the one who planned all of this. Bai Xian'er was puzzled. Didn't Master Shan and the others tell you? I thought you already knew. How are Sis and the others? Lu Yin asked sternly. Bai Xian'er looked at him innocently. They're dead. Lu Yin's gaze turned ruthless, his eyes filled with boundless killing intent. I'll make you pay. Bai Xian'er smiled. Do you want another dance? Oh wait. By the way, Brother Zhou Xian, there's something under the bed that I can't learn. I'll return it to you. She then looked around. Looks like you're really angry. You even tore down the house. It wasn't easy for me to keep it. Oh, and... Bai Xian'er's expression suddenly turned solemn as she looked at Lu Yin. You have to speed up your cultivation. If I break through to progenitor first, you might die. The image then disappeared. Chapter 2380. Lu Yin calmly stood in place, not knowing what to think. In the distance, Zi didn't dare to approach as Lu Yin seemed to have become a different person in this food park. Not long after, he walked towards the ruins of the house and found a piece of jade under the broken bed. He examined the jade and opened his eyes with a strange expression. Recorded within the jade was the overturning sky palm. The overturning sky palm had been created by Lu Xiaoxian himself. Kuei Luo had once said that Lu Xiaoxuan's creation had attracted the Lu progenitors' attention. Several progenitors had appeared and confirmed that the overturning sky palm had been listed as one of the Lu family's ultimate techniques. When Lu Yin had first heard of this, he hadn't thought much about it, but as his cultivation deepened, he felt that it was impossible. If one wasn't an emissary, how could one create a battle technique that was listed as one of the Lu family's ultimate techniques? This didn't make sense. Enlighters and emissaries used star energy, while emissaries used astral sources. Without a breakthrough, an emissary would never be able to understand the feeling of using an astral source, even if one could defeat an emissary. Furthermore, even an emissary shouldn't be able to create a battle technique that was listed as one of the Lu family's ultimate techniques. Only a half-ancestor or even a progenitor could accomplish such a feat. How could Lu Xiaoxian have done it? If he had really done it, then it would truly be an ultimate technique that even progenitor Qin couldn't reach. Progenitor Qin had only been cultivating when he was a peak enlighter, and even though he had created the serious technique, it hadn't been perfected. Lu Yin didn't believe that he had created such an impossible technique during Lu Xiaoxuan's era. The Lu family's acknowledgement was more of an encouragement to him. However, when he saw the overturning sky palm, he knew that he had been wrong. During Lu Xiaoxuan's era, he had created an impossible technique. It could even be considered a miracle. The overturning sky palm was a technique that allowed one to plant a sky. The sky was the palm and the palm overturned the sky. Using the soil of the continent as the soil was below while the sky was above. Now that the soil was in the sky, it was bound to overturn the sky. This was the overturning sky palm, a technique with a concept that didn't care about one's cultivation or type of power. Bai Xian'er had said that even she couldn't learn it, so who else could? Only Lu Yin. After seeing the overturning sky palm, Lu Yin felt as if he had mastered it. It was a natural feeling, as if he was the only one in the entire universe who could master this palm technique since he was the one who had created it. He slowly raised his hand, causing soil to appear in the air. This was no ordinary soil but rather the soil of the fifth mainland. It was the soil of the continent, and it was the foundation upon which humans had been born. The soil of the heavens had been planted in the sky, and as he pressed his hand down, he unleashed the heaven-toppling palm. In an instant, the food paradise began to tremble. It wasn't just the food paradise. The top realm, the middle realm, the lower realm, and everything that used the fifth mainland soil as its foundation trembled. However, the tremors were very weak and not even ants could sense them. Only Lu Yin himself could sense them. He used the soil of the land to form the sky and flipped the sky with his palm. The more soil there was, the stronger the power of the flipping sky palm. This was the reason why the flipping sky palm was listed as the lost art of the Lu clan and attracted the attention of ancestor Lu. If one day Lu Yin was able to use the entire fifth mainland soil to create a new world, then he would be able to turn the fifth mainland upside down. In the sovereign realm, Bai Wangyuan suddenly looked down. Was there a tremor? Or was it just his imagination? He wasn't the only one. Wang Fan, Xianxia, Wuxia, and the other patriarchs all sensed it, but because the tremors were too weak, they all thought that it was just their imagination. Within Red Flower Garden by Er's eyes lit up. Xian's eyes lit up. Had he really learned it? As expected of a battle technique that Lu Yin had created himself. So why couldn't others learn it? Brother Little Xian, you're still as mysterious as ever. In the distance, in the water house of the food paradise, Zi looked at Lu Yin curiously as he continuously flipped his palm. She couldn't understand what he was doing and she couldn't sense any power either. The more she looked at Lu Yin, the more she felt that he was abnormal. After trying out the flipping sky palm a few times, Lu Yin released his domain and enveloped the entire food paradise. Zi was shocked. Take me with you. She couldn't find Lu Yin anymore, and her life energy continuously spread out in an attempt to find him. Lu Yin appeared at the highest peak of the food paradise, his feet stepping on a mountain of ice cream as his body gradually sank down. The Lu family had a son named Little Xian. He was intelligent and a peerless genius. He loved to fight for justice and was happy to help others. He was like a warm sun that illuminated the stars. He cultivated diligently, loved good food, and had built the food paradise to share with the heroes. This was everyone's impression of Zhou Xian and the food paradise. Everyone thought that the food paradise was a place that Zhou Xian had specially built to gather with his friends and siblings. Because of his passion for good food, the food paradise had become famous throughout the Tree of Stars. However, Zhou Xiaoxuan's true goal in building the food paradise was to share with his siblings. Lu Yin sank to the bottom of the food paradise and raised a hand to place it on the mountain wall. As he rubbed his hand from right to left, strands of golden light flickered between his fingers. They then spread out from the ground and illuminated the entire food paradise. Zi stared blankly at the golden light piercing out from the ground. She continuously retreated, not knowing what the light was and not daring to approach it. The golden light illuminated the entire food paradise, breaking through the void and shining at the bottom of May Mountain. It then spread out from the bottom of the lake and strands of golden light shot towards May Mountain and the entire top realm. When the golden light flashed by, Wang Yuan and the others in the sovereign realm suddenly stood up and looked down in shock. The God Sealing Catalog? Xianxia and the others were stunned. The fog ancestor looked down with excitement. The God Sealing Catalog has appeared again? The golden light was not satisfied with just the top world. Instead, it pierced through the top world and headed for the middle world, the lower world, and even the outer world. Even the world of trees could not stop the golden light. The golden light illuminated the battlefield behind. At the fourth formation base, Wan Zi's eyes turned red and he laughed excitedly. The God Sealing Catalog. Ah! The God Sealing Catalog has appeared again. Young Master, you really do have the God Sealing Catalog. Wan Zi greets the young master. Zhou Tang stared blankly at the battlefield behind the golden light and bowed deeply. Zhou Tang greets the young master. The remaining members of the Lu family all bowed. Even Tu Qiming was stunned. Boss actually awakened the God Sealing Catalog? I didn't even know about it. When did this happen? No one knew when Zhou Xian had awakened the God Sealing Catalog. Everyone knew that he would eventually awaken it, but now that it had suddenly appeared, they were all caught off guard. The remaining members of the Lu family were excited, but Bai Wang Yuan and the others were fearful and even uneasy. The commander's platform sealed the dead, while the God Sealing Catalog sealed the living. The two complemented each other to form the invincible Lu family, which allowed the Lu family to control the fifth mainland and become its ruler. Elder Chan stared at the golden light in shock. The God Sealing Catalog? He had never seen it before. In reality, how many people had actually seen the God Sealing Catalog since ancient times? Even the Lu family itself had not seen it before, let alone outsiders. The God Sealing Catalog could only seal a god. What was a god? A cultivator? Of course not. An enlighter? An emissary? None of those. A half-ancestor? Still not. Only progenitors were gods, and only progenitors had the qualifications to be sealed as gods. How many progenitors did the Lu family have? Throughout history, most of the Lu family's direct descendants awakened the God Sealing Catalog, but it was useless. Without breaking through to the progenitor realm, how could they become a godly ancestor? Unless a progenitor willingly became a god. Bai Wangyuan's expression was gloomy. Back at the back of the battlefield, Lu Qi charged into the new continent by himself and used the God-sealing catalog for the first time. He borrowed Progenitor Wen's strength to sweep through the 12 marquises. If Progenitor Wen hadn't willingly become a god, then Lu Qi wouldn't have been able to become a godly ancestor. He could only rely on the commander's platform to hold back 4 of the 12 marquises. Xianxia's eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. Lu Xiaoxian isn't Lu Qi, and Lu Qi isn't as powerful as his son. That kid can rely on various methods to rival progenitors. Once he becomes a god, who will be able to stop him? Wuxia won't willingly become a god, right? Wang Fan suddenly asked, his words making everyone uneasy. Everyone looked at each other. It really was possible. If Wuxia willingly became a god for Lu Xiaoxian, then Lu Xiaoxian would be able to borrow Wuxia's strength. Even the God-sealing catalog can't allow him to become a godly ancestor with only 3 origin tribulations. That kind of power doesn't exist in the universe, Xianxia said. Bai Wangyuan clasped his hands behind his back. I'd like to see if Lu Xiaoxian dares to become a god for Wuxia. At that moment, pairs of scarlet eyes appeared, accompanied by terrifying progenitor corpse kings. Xianxia was furious. The God-sealing catalog has attracted the Eternals. I really want to step aside and let the Eternals eliminate Lu Xiaoxian. He didn't actually dare to step aside. If he did, then the Eternals' progenitors would enter the astral tree domain, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Lu Yin hadn't expected his God-sealing catalog to shake the entire astral tree domain. At that moment, the entire domain was illuminated by a golden light. The God-sealing catalog was a scroll of cloth. That was what Kue Luo had said. In reality, it was more like a scroll than a piece of cloth. Lu Yin wiped the mountain wall, causing the God-sealing catalog to appear. He then flipped open the scroll and endless golden light formed 4 large words. God-sealing catalog. It had been born in the astral tree domain, replacing the outer realm and the astral tree domain. It had become the only thing that everyone could see. The cultivators from the 4-way scales, the farmers' clan, the Lu family and Phantom Abyss, including those from the 5th mainland, all looked up at the God-sealing catalog. They felt a boundless might emanate from it. When those 4 words appeared, it was as if the entire astral tree domain, or rather the entire 5th mainland, was resonating and trembling. Lu Yin's appearance was also accompanied by the golden light of the God-sealing catalog. It seemed to be on par with the Sovereign's realm or even surpass it. Within the Sovereign's realm, Xianxia and the others gritted their teeth. Lu Yin was using the God-sealing catalog to show off the Lu family's might, but they had no choice but to stay in the Sovereign's realm to help him fend off powerful enemies. He awakened the God-sealing catalog? This is getting more and more interesting. What are you 4 old fogies going to do? Be careful not to get eaten by him. The Forgotten Ruins god appeared, his eyes burning as he looked at the sky above the astral tree domain. When he saw Lu Yin, his eyes lit up. Even further away, the corpse god stood up and slapped at the Sovereign's realm, attempting to activate the infinite force. Xianxia's divine sword domain descended, and prison chains wrapped around the corpse god to stop her. Chapter 2381. Lu Yin saw the battlefield of the ruler realm, the god of oblivion and the corpse god. Suddenly he stared into the distance and saw a scarlet vertical eye. It looked very ordinary, but it didn't have any aura at all. Looking at this scarlet vertical eye, endless coldness rose up, rushing straight to his head. He recognized it. He had seen this scarlet vertical eye when he merged into Lan Ho's body. It came from the endless space of darkness, and it represented the one true deity. Far away, the scarlet vertical eye and Lu Yin looked at each other calmly. Behind one was the endless darkness of space, while behind the other was the golden God-sealing catalog. One was darkness, one was light, while the other was the ruler realm of the progenitor battlefield. They were like 2 chess players using the progenitor realm as a chess piece. This was a scene that could only be seen from these 2's perspective. If Xianxia knew that he was being used as a chess piece, he would definitely attack in anger. The golden light faded. It seemed like a long time, but in reality only a few moments had passed. Beneath the food paradise, Lu Yin looked at the dimming God-sealing catalog. Sorry for covering you in dust for so long. The God-sealing catalog transformed into a ray of light that entered his forehead. Lu Yin hadn't known that there was a God-sealing catalog here, But after entering the room and seeing everything familiar, he recalled his home with Bai Xianer and the rainbow deer. It was only then that he remembered the food paradise and his God-sealing catalog. Lu Yin didn't know when the God-sealing catalog had awakened, but he knew that he hadn't told anyone, not even the 7 heroes. It wasn't that he didn't trust them but that there was no need to. It was just like how the 7 heroes didn't need to tell him everything they cultivated. Of course he only remembered their appearances. He still couldn't remember what they cultivated or what their innate gifts were. Once the God-sealing catalog entered his body, Lu Yin understood that the so-called godhood could only be achieved by the progenitor realm. Only progenitors could be called gods. He was curious. Kuei Luo had said that his father Lu Qi had dared to charge into the new world after awakening the God-sealing catalog. Had Lu Qi become a god? Lu Yin wasn't a progenitor, or had Kuei Luo remembered wrongly? The ruler realm war might have been due to the God-sealing catalog, but it didn't matter. Bai Wangyuan and the others would be there to take care of it. Lu Yin walked out of the mountain peak. Zi watched him closely, afraid that he would run away. "Can you take me out?" Zi asked nervously. In the past she would not have spoken to Lu Yin in such a manner, but now, Lu Yin was no different from a half-ancestor in her eyes. Lu Yin looked around and decided that it was time to leave. He really didn't want to leave this place as it held too many memories and Lu Xiaoshuan's naivety. However, he had to leave now and he would come back when he had the chance. "You're the blood ancestor's disciple?" Lu Yin asked. Zi felt like he was acting like a normal person after hearing his question. He had been like a wandering ghost before and he hadn't even looked at her properly after entering the room. "Yes, if you save me, Master will definitely thank you. It's not impossible for him to accept you as his disciple," she said subconsciously. "Let's go." With that he grabbed Ziyi and disappeared from the food paradise. The next moment the two of them appeared on the surface of Maishan Lake. The moment he appeared, a surge of astral source surged into Lu Yin's body. He raised his head and looked into the distance. The sky was already dark. Zi looked at the black mass in all directions. She thought it was dark clouds but it turned out to be stellar sources. Because too many stellar sources gathered in an instant, the sky darkened, and such a violent surge of stellar sources made Ziyi aghast. Cultivators hoped to absorb as much astral source as possible, but there were times when they could not handle too much. For example, when they had traveled through time, Chu Yuan and the others had not been able to handle the sudden release of astral source from the progenitor's sword. Only Lu Yin had been able to absorb it. It was the same now. In Zi's eyes, the astral source was like a giant beast that wanted to crush her into pieces. Lu Yin casually tossed Zi away and stood on the surface of the lake with his arms spread open. The general appointment platform floated beside him as he absorbed the astral source to his heart's content. The battle in the ruler realm continued. Bai Wangyuan and the others noticed the abnormality in the astral source, but they did not have the time to care. The violent astral source was only in the vicinity of Maishan, and it did not affect the entire top realm. Otherwise, even Lu Yin would not be able to handle it. This was a change brought about by the God-sealing catalog. Even though Lu Yin had lost his memories, he was not surprised. When the God-sealing catalog returned to his body, he would definitely crazily absorb astral source. This was something that he should have known. Above Maishan Lake, Lu Yin frantically absorbed astral source. He had 4 astral source cyclones and normally he should have filled them up one by one. Every time he filled one up he would have to face an origin tribulation. However, in the top realm he had directly transferred the death chi and opened all 3 stages. He planned to fill them up at the same time to prevent the outside world from detecting the number of cyclones he had. Otherwise, Bai Wangyuan and the others would not be able to sleep at night. Outside Maishan Mountain, Zi watched Lu Yin absorb the astral source with trepidation. She could not tell what realm Lu Yin was at. Suddenly the sky darkened, even darker than when the astral source had gone berserk. It was as if something had blocked out the sky. Zi slowly looked up and saw an enormous body that covered the sky, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. This was the most terrifying moment of Zi's life. She had never been so terrified since she was born. At this moment she wished that meeting Lu Yin had been nothing more than a dream. She would rather be trapped in the food paradise for 10,000 years than face this thing above her head. What was this? The caged Wurm lowered its head and looked down at Zi, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Saliva dripped from the side of its sharp teeth, but to Ziyi, it was as if an entire lake was crashing down on her head. Ziyi's entire body went cold, and when she saw that the saliva was about to land on her body, she did not even dare to dodge. A gust of wind swept past and pushed her away. Lu Yin had taken action. For the sake of the blood ancestor, he could not allow the caged Wurm to bully Ziyi. Behave. The caged Wurm's claws fell and bent, no longer frightening. Ziyi finally reacted and crawled up from the ground in a sorry state. She looked at Lu Yin in shock. This thing actually listened to him? What had he become? Although she did not know how strong the caged Wurm was, the despair that it gave off was at least that of a half-ancestor. She did not consider the possibility of becoming a progenitor, as that was the limit of cultivation that most people knew. No one could teach a progenitor a lesson. Lu Yin retracted his gaze, and the 4 astral genesis chi cyclones within his body continued to expand. They quickly reached the threshold of the 4th origin tribulation, and at the same time, a vortex appeared above his head. The 4th origin tribulation was about to appear. This minor origin tribulation did not require much attention, as it could be easily broken through with external items. Lu Yin had already experienced it twice. The only thing that had caught the attention of others was the 4 consecutive attacks. Fortunately, they had all appeared consecutively, so no one would suspect that it was the 4th origin tribulation. As the vortex above him dissipated, Lu Yin used his death chi to seal the 3 stages once more. He had reached the 4th origin tribulation. After overcoming the origin tribulation, Lu Yin took Ziyi with him and mounted the caged Wurm's back. They headed back to the Wang family continent as it was time to return to the 5th mainland. The caged Wurm was very fast and it quickly swept across half of the top realm. It soon saw the Wang family continent in the distance. The Wang family also saw the caged Wurm and knew that Lu Yin had arrived. Their expressions turned cold. In the valley below the Wang family continent, all of the 5th mainland's cultivators bowed when they saw the caged Wurm appear. Greetings, Daoist. Greetings, Daoist. Lu Yin did not hesitate and he did not even look at who had arrived in the cosmic trees. He simply passed through the new sky corridor and left. The caged Wurm shrank its body and left as well. Wang Yan watched enviously. Although they were mortal enemies, Lu Yin was living a carefree life. Wang Yan did not know how Lu Yin had done it, but he had actually made the 4 scales fear him and come to an agreement to take control of the 5th mainland as an emissary. He had many powerhouses under his command, and he could come and go freely in the top realm without anyone stopping him. This was Zhou Xian. If the Lu family had not been exiled, then Lu Yin would not only have been in charge of the 5th mainland, but also of the entire human race. Lu Yin passed through the new sky corridor and returned to the 5th mainland's technocracy. The caged Wurm returned to its original state and bared its fangs and claws. In the distance, a group of cultivators from the 5th mainland who had just arrived in the cosmic trees looked on in horror. One of them blurted out, "The divine martial caged Wurm?" Lu Yin was about to leave when he suddenly felt that the voice was familiar. He looked over and saw an old acquaintance, Long Zhang. In the distance, among the cultivators from the 6th mainland, Long Zhang immediately regretted speaking. It was better to hide at a time like this. How could he speak, especially in front of Zhou Xian? When Lu Yin looked over, Long Zhang's expression turned bitter as he had been discovered. Lu Yin only glanced at him and did not pay him any attention. This person had caused trouble for him when he had disguised himself as Long 7, but he was just a minor character who was not worth talking to. Soon the caged Wurm disappeared. The cultivators from the 6th mainland relaxed. Long Zhang looked at the empty space in the distance and his heart grew even more bitter. When Lu Yin had caused trouble for him, he had been afraid. Now Lu Yin had completely ignored him. Although he was no longer afraid, he still felt an indescribable feeling. Did he not even have the right to cause trouble for that person? Compared to a few decades ago, Long Zhang had matured a lot, and he was no longer as spoiled as he had once been. After all, he was the son of a branch of the White Dragon clan, and his cultivation had been about the same as Lu Yin's. Now he was an enlighter, and although he was not considered outstanding in the cosmic trees, he was still quite good among his peers in the 5th mainland. Otherwise, he would not have been sent to find a way to enter the 5th tower. Unfortunately, he was worthless in Lu Yin's eyes. Now that Ziyi was free, Lu Yin brought her to the Innerverse astral river and put her down. He then notified the blood ancestor while he rode the caged WM to the cosmic sea. The core had always been one of Lu Yin's worries. It had once been one of the 4 hegemons of the cosmic sea, and it had many secrets that the outside world did not know about. It was able to draw upon the power of a progenitor, and there were few who could rival it in the entire Fifth Mainland. What exactly was it trying to do by staying in the cosmic sea for so many years? Lu Yin would not feel at ease until he figured it out. Soon, the caged WM arrived at the cosmic sea, and Lu Yin headed towards the core's territory alone. The moment he stepped into the core's territory, the sky in the distance darkened, and lightning rained down on the surface of the sea with a thunderous roar. An ancient warship approached from afar, and a boundless murderous aura surged towards Lu Yin. There was also the sound of the word, kill. Kill. Chapter 2382. The voices grew closer and closer and the word kill resounded throughout the cosmic sea. Lu Yin looked at the soldiers again and saw their unyielding, resolute and bloodthirsty eyes. Each soldier had been tempered thousands of times and he saw Hua Wu among them. Compared to when he had fused with Henye's body, Hua Wu's aura now resembled that of the soldiers. At this distance Lu Yin could see Hua Wu but Hua Wu could not see him. However, Hua Wu also shouted the word kill just like the soldiers. Lu Yin stood on the surface of the sea and quietly waited for the warships to approach. Some ships passed by in the distance, but they did not dare to approach the army's territorial waters. There was only a thin line between them but no one dared to cross it. Ship. Captain, there's someone there. Someone cried out. On the ship, everyone looked over and saw Lu Yin standing quietly on the surface of the sea with his hands behind his back. In front of him was the army's warship, which was sailing out of the darkness. The captain's face went pale. Go, go, go. That person is looking to die. Let's stay away from him. Wait, Captain, why does that person look so familiar? Someone was bewildered. The captain roared, familiar my ass. It doesn't matter who comes here. Stay away from him and don't get caught in the crossfire. That guy is looking to die so he can't drag us down with him. Send a message to the ships behind and tell them to stay away from the army's territorial waters. I remember now. He's Lu Yin, the leader of the Great Eastern Alliance, the founder of the Fifth Tower and the current ruler of the Fifth Mainland. The others stared at the surface of the sea. It's him. It's Lu Yin Lu Dozi. I remember too. I saw him participate in the Supreme Astral Tournament before. I saw it even earlier during the Astral Combat Academy tournament decades ago. Captain, we don't need to run anymore. Lu Dozi. The army has run into a tough nut. The captain stared blankly and his anxious heart relaxed. Good. No wonder he dared to face the army. So it's him. The army has divided the territorial waters. Back then even Leon's armada didn't dare to approach them. Now they've finally met someone who can rule them. As long as we can restore these waters to normal, our sailing time will increase by at least a third. The captain grinned. He did not believe that anyone else could deal with the army, but Lu Yin definitely had no problems. Brothers, just you wait. These waters will soon be free. Long live Lu Daozi. Lu Daozi killed the army. In the distance Lu Yin glanced over. What were those people so excited about? Kill. There was a fierce shout as thousands of pikes fell to the ground at the same time. This inconceivable combination allowed all of Lu Yin's killing intent and power level to explode at a single point, releasing a killing force that could rival a power level of 1,000,000. The sky of Universe Ocean was collapsing and the surface of the sea was shaking. No matter how far or close one was, whether one was on a ship or on an island at this moment, one could feel that there was a powerful force that was about to explode from the depths of the sea. Everyone in Leon's armada looked solemn. Heizij Leon walked out and stared in the direction of the army. Are you crazy? Did someone offend them? Leader, the seabed is about to be overturned. The ghost doctor reminded with a hunched back. Heizij Leon took out his tyrant blade. They won't be able to lift it. He was just about to make a move when the killing force suddenly vanished, and Cosmic Sea regained its calm. Everyone in Leon's armada was bewildered and looked towards the direction of the army in confusion. Heizij Leon frowned. Even he found it hard to resist the power of the army just now. Who was it? Lu Yin did not move from his position in the core domain, but he had suppressed that power. Cosmic sea could not be overturned, or who knew how many people would die. In front of him, the power of the thousands of spears had been dispelled, but one spear still appeared, condensing into a single point and thrusting towards Lu Yin. This spear seemed to have emerged from the long river of time, and Lu Yin heard those words again. The supreme spear, the weapon of death. This attack contained the power of a progenitor. In the entire Fifth Mainland there were not many who could survive this attack, but it was useless against Lu Yin. Even a true progenitor would not be able to do anything to him, let alone a progenitor. He did not borrow progenitor Chen's power, but instead directly used the rune lines of a progenitor general to cancel out the killing force of the spear. When the spear finally approached his face, it was just a spear without any progenitor power or killing force. On the warship, Huawu stared at Lu Yin in a daze. Was it him? Lu Yin raised his hand and grabbed the spear. It was cold and hard to the touch, and it reeked of blood. Who knew how many people it had killed? He gripped the spear and stepped onto the warship to face the soldiers. All of the soldiers stared at him, and it was at this moment that Lu Yin realized that most of the soldiers had no spirit in their eyes. Only the soldiers at the very front were awake, and most of the soldiers were not. "You've crossed the line," a hoarse voice said. Lu Yin looked over. "Number 007, you've participated in the Supreme Tournament. You're awake. Tell me what's going on with you." The one who had spoken was number 007. He had been an 8-cycle hunter when he had participated in the Supreme Tournament, and he was still an 8-cycle hunter now. "We're the remnants of the reserve troops of the garrison. We've been ordered to guard this place and not allow anyone to approach. If you try to force your way in, we'll defend you to the death." Lu Yin looked at him. "Whose garrison troops are you?" Number 007 did not speak. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. "Guard what? This place?" Number 007 still did not speak. Lu Yin looked at Huawu. "Why are you here?" Huawu raised his head. "I'm a recruit of the garrison. I've inherited the garrison's will and will persevere in guarding this place. I've vowed to fight to the death against foreign enemies." "Cut the crap." Lu Yin barked at him. Huawu's expression changed and he hurriedly walked out with a wide smile. He walked up to Lu Yin in a fawning manner. "Brother Lu, long time no see." Lu Yin looked at him. "Why did you join the army?" Huawu was helpless. "I didn't want to either. I was being chased and accidentally came to this region. If I didn't join, I would have died. I had no choice." "So you used a secret technique to join the army?" Lu Yin was puzzled. Huawu's face twitched. "I joined wholeheartedly. What's going on here?" Lu Yin asked. "I don't know." Huawu was helpless. "Brother Lu, I really don't know. I'm not lying to you. With your strength, you can easily suppress this army, so I have no reason to lie to you. I really don't know. I've been on this warship ever since I joined and haven't left. Life has been tough. If I'd known that this would happen, I would have brought my enemies here. At least I would have had someone to talk to." "So you're saying that you're useless? Then you can continue to stay here," Lu Yin said casually. Huawu grew anxious. "Don't, Brother Lu. Although I don't know their secret, I can analyze it." He then laid down on the ground and began to draw. Serial 007 suddenly attacked. The spear pierced towards Huawu. "Traitor, die." Lu Yin waved his hand and Serial 007 was sent flying. At the same time, thousands of soldiers attacked again. Lu Yin used the rune lines on the platform to suppress the warship. "You won't be able to complete the mission if you die." Serial 007 stared at Huawu. "Those who betray us will be destroyed by the heavens." Huawu was frightened by his words, and he didn't dare to move due to the strange atmosphere in the army. Lu Yin calmly said, "You've already betrayed us. What are you waiting for? Hurry up." Huawu thought about it and then continued to draw bitterly. He drew the army's sea region and finally pointed at a spot. "Brother Lu, no matter how this warship travels, it's always circling around this point. It's like it's being pulled by a line. There's definitely something strange about this point." Lu Yin suddenly released his domain to search for the location. Serial 007 barked, "Kill." Then thousands of pikes descended at the same time, forming a single spear that pierced towards Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin had already disappeared. The army's defensive power was very powerful and it could borrow the power of a progenitor, but it was useless against Lu Yin. Lu Yin had already found the location and brought Huawu to the bottom of the sea. Huawu cried out, "Brother Lu, I'm not going. Throw me further away, Brother Lu." Huawu choked on his saliva. Lu Yin's domain continued to expand, and he had already discovered something. When he stopped and looked down, his eyes were filled with shock. This was progenitor Hui's symbol. There was a source box array beneath the cosmic sea, and it wasn't just one. Rather, it was a combination of multiple arrays that formed an array seal that was almost identical to the one that had been left behind by the Royal Frost Continent and the Frozen Immortal sect. It had progenitor Hui's symbol on it. Lu Yin hadn't expected the army to be guarding this. "Brother Lu, what did you see?" Huawu was curious. Most people wouldn't be able to tell, and if not for Jeffrey, Huawu wouldn't have been able to see progenitor Hui's symbol. "Nothing," Lu Yin replied indifferently. He then soared into the sky and appeared above the sea. In the distance, the warships had already arrived. Kill, kill, kill. The thousands of pikes exploded with killing intent once more. At this moment, the thousands of soldiers' eyes regained their clarity, and they looked at Lu Yin with hostility. Lu Yin sighed and turned to leave. Huo hadn't expected this outcome, as he had thought that the army was finished. "Brother Lu, why aren't we fighting?" Huo asked. He had hoped that the army would be dealt with, as Serial 007's words had been too terrifying. He was afraid, as this army was much more powerful than any of the enemies he had faced before. How could Lu Yin fight the army? Not only could he not fight, but he also had to help them guard this place. This was a seal left behind by progenitor Hui, which meant that they were progenitor Hui's garrison. Then what about the people from Arctic City? Were they there as well? Lu Yin currently knew that progenitor Hui had left behind 3 seals on the 5th mainland. The first was the Royal Frost Continent, which was guarded by the people from Arctic City. The second was the space left behind by the Frozen Immortal sect. There were no guards there, but there were remnants of spiritual force in that space. One of the mountains even had the power of a progenitor, and there was also the second Night King hiding there, so there was no need to guard it. This was the 3rd seal, and it was guarded by the army. Why had progenitor Hui left behind 3 seals on the 5th mainland, and what were they sealing? Lu Yin didn't know, but he was certain that since progenitor Hui had sealed them, it meant that the things inside were harmful to humanity and they couldn't be opened. "I'm getting married on the 9th. Although I'm busy, I'll definitely update. Let's be happy together. Thank you for your support." Chapter 2383. You kneel down and kowtow to the army to atone for your sins. Lu Yin suddenly stopped and released Hua Wudao. Hua blinked. "Brother Lu, what do you mean by kneeling? Atonement?" Lu Yin replied, "You betrayed the core, so of course you have to atone for your sins." "Didn't you ask me to betray you? I'm on your side," Hua exclaimed. Lu Yin replied, "That's not a reason for you to betray the core. Since you've joined the core, you should have followed it to the end." Hua Wu felt as if he had seen a ghost, and his mind was a mess. He couldn't understand what Lu Yin was trying to say. Wasn't helping him the right thing to do? "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have betrayed you. I'm so sorry." Lu Yin forced him to kneel before the army. By the time Huo looked up, Lu Yin was already gone. He cursed as he stood up and looked around. Then he decided on a direction and quickly ran away. They were all crazy. Lu Yin rode the caged WRM towards the Innerverse. First, he went to the Day-Night clan and entered the Frozen Immortal sect's space. He used the Frozen Immortal pawn to enter the underground world and once again confirmed progenitor Hui's seal. After that, he ordered the area to be sealed and then headed towards the Blazing Mist Flow Zone. When he arrived at the Blazing Mist Flow Zone, he confirmed the location of the Royal Frost Continent and entered it. It had been a long time since he last came to the Royal Frost Continent. The frigid weather did not change, and Lu Yin saw Extreme Ice City in the distance. His domain spread out and enveloped the entire Royal Frost Continent. The Ice Empress suddenly raised her head. He walked out of Arctic City and saw Lu Yin standing high in the sky. He took a deep breath, stepped forward and slowly bowed. "Greetings, Dao child." At this moment, Chehan walked out and bowed excitedly. "Greetings, Your Highness." This was Lu Yin's status in the Great Yu Empire as the royal regent. Lu Yin nodded. "I was just passing by, so I came to take a look." The Ice Emperor didn't believe that Lu Yin was just passing by. They had known each other for a long time and knew each other well enough to know that Lu Yin wouldn't come here for no reason. However, he couldn't figure out what Lu Yin was doing here. To him, the power of the Royal Frost Continent was dispensable. Right, the Ice Empress remembered. Could it be because of that seal? Is the seal all right? He asked. As expected, the Ice Empress thought to herself, it's fine. Everything is normal. Has anyone checked the seal since I left? Only President Jeffrey has come here a few times. Anyone who knew that Huizu's seal was here would not be able to ignore it. Jeffrey came to check it out to make sure nothing went wrong. Only Jeffrey had been here, which meant that Xian and the others did not know about the seal. Otherwise, they would have come to check it out. Got it, you guys go about your business. Lu Yin waved them off. The Ice Empress and Che Han looked at each other and bowed once more before returning to the extreme ice city. Lu Yin arrived above the glacial mountain range and looked down. He saw Ancestor Hui's symbol again, and if not for Jeffrey, he would not have been able to recognize it. His body descended and sank into the glacier. At this moment, inside the extreme ice city, the Ice Empress was worried. Don't worry, His Highness won't touch the seal, Che Han said. The Ice Emperor sighed, not in the past but now. He was worried that Lu Yin would be too arrogant and think that he could control everything. That was why he wanted to move the seal and find out what was inside. It was undeniable that Lu Yin was now in control of the fifth continent and had repelled Ancestor Realm experts. He had also received the respect of a progenitor, but the more he was like this, the easier it was for him to get carried away. In the Ice Empress' heart, the Hui ancestor was a true progenitor, someone who had left his mark in history. If Lu Yin wanted to compete with the Hui ancestor, then he would definitely remove the seal. What would happen to Extreme Ice City then? The Ice Emperor was overthinking things. Even if Lu Yin was a half-ancestor or even a progenitor and had the power to fight by Wang Yuan and the others head-on, he would not remove the seal. This was because Huizu had left it behind. Huizu was a wise man that Lu Yin respected the most. No matter how strong he was, his contributions to humanity were unparalleled. Without him, there would not be the fifth continent today, nor would there be the astral tree. He might not have been an invincible progenitor, but he was definitely a progenitor worthy of respect. Lu Yin would not touch a seal left behind by such a senior, regardless of whether the item under the seal was a threat to him. Lu Yin had come to confirm the safety of the seal and also to take a look at it. This seal was formed by a source box array and he wanted to see how far he was from Huizu in terms of lock breaking. In the end, he saw that it was infinitely far away. This result made him both impressed and dejected. He believed that he was infinitely close to being an origin heavenly master, but even so he could not understand Huizu's vast lock-breaking methods. Just as Jeffrey had said, he could not understand it. Jeffrey was also infinitely close to being an origin heavenly master, but he could only repair it slightly. It was like patching up the surface of a spacecraft and he could not understand its structure at all. Huizu had walked too far on the path of lock-breaking, to the point that even an origin heavenly master could not see his back. In the current era, perhaps only Heavenly Master Gu Yen could attempt to understand it. After 2 days, Lu Yin left. There was no need for him to stay and he did not even bid farewell to the Ice Emperor. He wanted to go back and cultivate the 9 clones technique. He had been eyeing this technique for a long time, but he had not been able to cultivate it. Now he could temporarily not go to the astral tree. It was more stable and the 4-way scale would be more at ease. He could use this opportunity to cultivate it. Outside the sky sect, the ancestral turtle turned around and saw the enormous hellworm approaching. It rolled its eyes and shrank back into its shell. The hellworm had been eyeing it from afar, and it was only satisfied when it saw it shrink back into its shell. It raised its claws a little higher. Lu Yin had the hellworm wait beside the sky sect, and his figure flashed to the location where the 9 clones technique was located. He then took out progenitor Chen's blood from his cosmic ring. There were 10 buckets in his ring and each one was as large as a person. Even progenitor Chen would be stunned by this as he did not have that much blood himself. Lu Yin looked at the scales on the bottom of his feet. They did not look any different from the other scales, but once he touched them they would turn blood red and he would be subjected to a bloodline backlash. He could withstand a bloodline backlash, especially now that he had mastered battle force to the Palm realm. With the tyrannical strength in his heart that could dissolve everything, he could even ignore the backlash. However, the real problem was learning the 9 clones technique. The last time he had checked, he had clearly seen the state of the 9 clones technique, and he had a general understanding of how to cultivate it. However, whether or not he could succeed would have to wait until he started cultivating it. As he thought about it, Progenitor Chen's blood spiraled up from one of the buckets and covered Lu Yin's arm. His arm turned blood red and he squatted down and pressed his hand against the scale. Suddenly, his mind went into a trance as if he saw a drop of blood fall from the void at the same location. Then, just like the last time, he saw a small person split up and then fuse back together. Lu Yin stared at this. This was the key to cultivating the 9 clones technique. At the same time, the Xia family's bloodline backlash appeared. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold as the purplish-black substance of his Palm Realm battle force spread to his arm and hid under the layer of Progenitor Chen's blood. With the appearance of his Palm Realm battle force, the bloodline conflict that had easily torn his hand apart was no longer important. In his heart, the stars of Sirius shone, making Lu Yin look incomparably divine. The caged drake turned around, its large eyes looking straight at Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin was at the corner of its mouth and moved along with its head so it couldn't see him at all. Lu Yin's Palm Realm battle force and the power in his heart both caught the caged drake's attention. Giant beasts had sharper senses than humans, and these two powers made the caged drake wary. Opposite him, the ancestral turtle's head was also staring at Lu Yin from within its shell. Compared to the caged drake, it looked at Lu Yin with a more familiar gaze. This was because it was originally a pet of the Lu family, and it had only stayed behind because of the Mavis divine tree's fruit. Progenitor Chen's blood spiraled above the caged drake's head and covered Lu Yin's arm. It was also constantly being consumed, and Lu Yin was able to see it for longer and longer. At first he only saw one figure split up and fuse back together, and he saw the gas line connecting the 9 figures. Later on, he gradually saw the 9 figures fuse together, and the changes in the body of the single figure became clearer and clearer. He didn't know how long it would take for a direct descendant of the Xia family to cultivate the 9 clones technique. They didn't have any bloodline conflicts, so they could watch for as long as they wanted. However, Lu Yin was different. There seemed to be 10 buckets of Progenitor Chen's blood, but it would be consumed very quickly. Lu Yin regretted that he hadn't prepared more. A day passed and half a bucket of Progenitor Chen's blood had been consumed. Based on his calculations, the blood would only last for 20 days at most. Would he be able to cultivate the 9 clones technique in 20 days? Lu Yin wasn't sure. But for now he could only continue cultivating. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye, and half of Progenitor Chen's blood had been consumed. Lu Yin had long since immersed himself in cultivating the 9 clones technique, and the purplish-black substance formed from the Mastery Realm battle force was also constantly being consumed. It constantly clashed with his bloodline, and it wasn't limitless. Henshin's purplish-black substance had also been used up quite a bit while helping Lu Yin cultivate. 15 days passed and Lu Yin was still immersed in cultivating the 9 clones technique. After 16 days, 17 days, 18 days, Lu Yin suddenly opened his eyes and retracted his hand. He turned around and saw that there was only 1 bucket of Progenitor Chen's blood left. As for the 9 clones technique, he had already seen through it. After collecting Progenitor Chen's blood, Lu Yin returned to the above-the-sky sect and immediately went into seclusion. He raised his hand and his die appeared. He tapped it and removed his cosmic ring at the same time. He couldn't roll enhance or anything like that right now as he needed to cultivate when he was at his deepest. The die slowly spun and finally stopped at 3. Lu Yin immediately rolled it again. 2 again. For time stop space. After entering the time stop space, he took out the Mist Ancestor's wisdom root and brewed some tea. If he didn't use it now, when would he use it? Even though he still had 2 wisdom roots left, he still needed to use them. After using them all up, he only had 1 left. He took a sip of the wisdom root tea and exhaled. He closed his eyes and truly began to cultivate the 9 clones technique. 2 months later, Lu Yin's face contorted in pain. The seal on his back that was preventing him from breaking through had appeared, and he was panting heavily. His original state of cultivation had been completely suppressed. After thinking about it, he rested for a day and tried again, but after only a month, the seal on his back appeared again, preventing him from cultivating the 9 clones technique. Chapter 2384. Lu Yin opened his eyes tiredly and looked at his palms. He clenched his fists and stood up helplessly. He couldn't cultivate the 9 clones. The 9 clones technique's first step was to sense one's consciousness and form a nearly corporeal state. Then one would split into 9 and use one's own blood to reconstruct a physical body. The 8 separated consciousnesses would then merge into the 8 bodies, connecting their consciousnesses and merging their bloodlines. This was the 9 clones technique. In other words, each of the 9 clones had their own independent personalities, but because they were separated from their consciousnesses, they would never betray the main consciousness. The 8 clones weren't real bodies. They were merely condensed from one's own blood and bones to merge into the main body. This was the cultivation principle of the 9 clones technique. Anyone who knew this method and followed the 9 clones technique's instructions would be able to cultivate it. However, Lu Yin was one of the few people who couldn't cultivate the 9 clones technique because of the seal on his back that prevented him from splitting his bloodline and bones. The seal on his back not only prevented him from breaking through, but it also prevented him from cultivating the 9 clones technique. Lu Yin was helpless. He had asked Master Shan Wanzi and the others to find out who had placed the seal on him. It definitely wasn't Bai Xian'er, as she wouldn't have been able to do it with her strength, but they didn't know either. There were pros and cons to the seal on his back. It prevented him from breaking through, but if not for the seal he would have been killed by that desiccated corpse when he had broken through to the explorer realm. Also, if not for the seal he would have died at the pirate port. Lu Yin wasn't sure if the seal was protecting him or harming him. On one hand it prevented his cultivation progress, but on the other, it protected his body. It was precisely because it protected his body that he couldn't split his bloodline and bones. The seal didn't have a consciousness, and it felt that splitting his bloodline and bones was a form of injury rather than cultivation. This was why Lu Yin couldn't cultivate the 9 clones technique. Lu Yin sighed helplessly. With the seal in place he would never be able to cultivate it. Wait. His eyes lit up. The 9 clones technique required the separation and merging of one's consciousness. Since blood and bones could be condensed and merged into a clone, then what about the astral energy vortex? Lu Yin's wisdom root T was still in effect, and his train of thought exceeded that of a normal person. He suddenly thought of this and he decided to do it. Since his consciousness was already split, it would be a waste not to use it. The scene in front of him changed and he left the time-stop space and appeared in the above heaven sect. Only a second had passed in the outside world, but in this second he had a peculiar cultivation direction. Although he was unable to cultivate the 9 clones technique, he was able to merge his consciousness into the 4 astral origin chi clones. With consciousness he would be able to use battle skills and cultivation skills. This also meant that when he reached the half-martial ancestor stage he might have 4 inner worlds. No, it was not a possibility, it was a certainty that he would have 4 inner worlds. 4 inner worlds that would appear using different battle skills and cultivation skills. Lu Yin racked his brain for a long time, but he couldn't think of anyone with 2 inner worlds. He was probably the only cultivator in human history with 4 inner worlds. What were the 4 inner worlds like? He couldn't guess it either. More importantly, due to the fusion of their consciousnesses, it was very likely that these 4 inner worlds could be fused. Of course, this was only a guess, and it was a guess due to the effects of the wisdom root T. Even so, it was still a guess that made Lu Yin excited. Although he hadn't been able to cultivate the 9 clones, his current state was still acceptable. Furthermore, once the seal on his back was removed, he would still be able to cultivate the 9 clones. He continued to cultivate and battled in the realm of palms. Qi, serious art, primogenitor's scripture, and so on. All of these required time to cultivate, and now was the best time to do so. He wanted to give the 4-way scale a safe environment to fight against the Eternals. He raised his hand and his die appeared. He continued rolling 4 pips. His luck wasn't bad. In the astral tree realm, there was still a long line of cultivators from the 5th mainland entering the astral tree realm. At this moment, in the middle of the line, a man was looking around happily and curiously, especially the mother tree in the distance. Morning, I've heard about the mother tree for a long time. Now I've finally seen it. It's so strong. Morning. Shut up, kid, someone behind the man spoke up. It was a woman whose face was hidden behind a black veil. She glared at the man in annoyance. The man turned around and blinked. Do we know each other? You're making it hard for me to breathe. Shut up. The woman growled. The man pointed into the distance. Mother tree. What does it have to do with you? Keep talking and I'll throw you into the mother tree, the woman said in annoyance. The man shrank back and didn't dare to speak. He was Little Stutterer, and he had once been a member of the Longevity Squadron. His master had been the squadron's captain Ji Chong, who was also one of Xia Ji's clones. Back when Lu Yin had defeated the Day-Night clan and replaced Night King Jinwu to participate in the Star Tower contest in the Neoverse, Little Stutterer had been ordered by Ji Chong to follow Lu Yin. In reality, he had been ordered by Ji Chong to keep an eye on Lu Yin, but he had misunderstood. In his own words, Ji Chong had been concerned about him and that following Lu Yin would bring him benefits. Later on, the Longevity Squadron had been destroyed in the Cosmic Sea, but Little Stutterer had been lucky enough to survive. He also hadn't planned on taking revenge on Lu Yin or Leon's armada. He didn't have any feelings for Ji Chong, and they had only met a few times over the past decade. Now that he had come to the Astral Tree realm, he was very excited. As the line moved forward, Little Stutterer's excitement hadn't died down, but he didn't dare to speak and only looked back from time to time. The woman glared at him. "What are you looking at, little lamb?" Little Stutterer paused and slowly turned back to stare at her. Me. I told you to shut up. Didn't you hear me? Or was I being nice to him?" The woman threatened, pressing down on Little Stutterer's shoulder and exerting a bit of force. Little Stutterer was in pain. Big sis? She raised a brow. She was indeed big sis. The fifth mainland didn't have an astral source, and her cultivation progress had been slow. That was why she had come to the Astral Tree realm to cultivate. Of course, she couldn't be discovered by the four-way scales. Although the four-way scales might not do anything to her, she was still the closest person to Lu Yin, and those ancestors might be shameless. She was confident that she would be able to help Lu Yin take revenge against the four-way scales once she recovered her strength, but now was not the time. It was best to keep a low profile for now. "You know me." Big Sis hadn't expected Little Stutterer to recognize her. Little Stutterer was afraid. Little lamb. Pirate language. Just because of that. "I'm your mother." Big Sis was speechless as Little Stutterer had actually recognized her. "You're from the Cosmic Sea?" Little Stutterer pursed his lips. Booing. "If you follow Lu Yin, you'll have meat to eat." Big Sis was confused. "What nonsense are you spouting? But since you know Little Seven, I won't bicker with you. Shut up and don't talk." Little Stutterer felt wronged and turned away, but he also relaxed. Fortunately, he hadn't exposed himself, or else Big Sis might have killed him. Not long after, there were cries of surprise from behind, causing many to turn around. Wang Yan looked in the direction of the new sky corridor. "Go check what's going on. Why are those people so excited?" Wang Yan was shocked when he heard the news. "What? The fifth mainland's astral source has recovered?" Back at the fifth mainland, Lu Yin rolled in Hans and then reappeared a second later. He had been cultivating for a year and his battle force had recovered. He would rest for 10 days and see if he could roll enhance again. 6 enhance was becoming more and more precious, but it was also becoming more and more difficult to fuse into a suitable person's body. Suddenly, the originally peaceful fifth mainland's cosmos changed. The cosmic liquid that had been devouring the astral source dissipated as the astral source was released in a frenzy, just like when it had been devoured. No, it was being released even faster than when it had been devoured. Lu Yin sensed this and immediately had the sapling absorb the astral source as quickly as possible. He then walked out of the cosmos and started absorbing the astral source while it was being released. He looked at the dissipating liquid in the distance. Was it time? Could the Eternal's liquid only last this long? Throughout the fifth mainland, countless cultivators walked out of the cosmos and excitedly absorbed the star energy and astral source. They had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Even Lu Bujing and the others were the same. More accurately, they were the ones who had benefited the most. There was a very long gap between the half-progenitor realm and the progenitor realm, but the release of the astral source universe had greatly reduced this gap. From this perspective, no one knew whether this was a good or bad thing for the fifth mainland. In just a few moments, the 4 astral source cyclones within Lu Yin's body were almost full. He did not immediately break through to the 5th tribulation as he had just broken through to the 4th tribulation. It was better to wait. Lu Bujing stood in outer space with a solemn expression. "What's wrong, third uncle?" Lu Yin asked when he saw that something was wrong with Lu Bujing's expression. Lu Bujing solemnly replied, "I'm getting closer and closer to the progenitor realm. Perhaps I should try to break through." Lu Yin smiled. Then I'll congratulate third uncle in advance. I hope that third uncle can break through to the progenitor realm and become the first person to do so since the Daoist sect's era. Lu Bujing shook his head. Breaking through is easier said than done. If I fail, I'll die. He looked at Lu Yin. I still need to stabilize myself. Lu Yin nodded. Lu Bujing was not the only one who had a chance of breaking through. Her and Destiny's daughter also had a chance. They had been the sect masters of the 12 Elysium Gates during the era of the Above Heaven sect, and being able to become a sect master meant that they were the closest to the progenitor realm and could break through at any time. The release of the astral source universe had allowed them to shorten the distance between them and the progenitor realm, and they all began to enter seclusion. Lu Yin was filled with anticipation as he did not know who would be the first to attempt to break through, as he had never seen a progenitor's origin tribulation before. The release of the astral source ended quickly, and the fifth mainland returned to its original state from 20 years ago. Many of the new batch of young cultivators had never experienced star energy cultivation before, and it was rather novel. Because of the recovery of the astral source universe, many cultivators who had originally planned to go to the cosmic tree domain returned. After all, the cosmic tree domain was an unfamiliar place, and unless it was absolutely necessary, many people did not want to take the risk. Previously, they had only gone there because they could not cultivate, but now there was no need for them to do so. Lu Yin wanted to continue cultivating, and just as he was about to return to the Above Heaven sect to enter seclusion, he noticed Jiaolan's figure in the sky. He seemed to be chasing someone. Chapter 2385. In the outerverse, outside the solar system, dozens of cultivators stared blankly at the caged WRM and ancestral tortoise. Senior brother said that the divine martial caged WRM is here and that it's huge. I didn't believe it before, but now it's really here. That's your divine martial plane's caged WRM? That's terrifying. Your divine martial plane's losses are too great. Zhou Xian will pay the price sooner or later. From their conversation, Lu Yi knew that these people were from the sixth mainland, but he did not know how they had gotten past Chu Yuan and the others. Lu Yin paid a price to have Chu Yuan, He Luo Mavis, and the others seal off the Xinkong corridor and prevent the cultivators of the same generation from entering the fifth pagoda. Those who could come from the cosmic tree were all from the four-way scales, and Lu Yin could use Chu Yuan to suppress them. Lu Yin did not know how these people had gotten past the blockade, but that was it, as Sky Blue had already caught up. Run. It's him. A group of cultivators from the cosmic tree were shocked when they saw Sky Blue appear. They hurriedly rushed into the solar system as they knew that the fifth pagoda was in the solar system. In reality, a group of people from the cosmic tree had already entered the fifth pagoda. Chu Yuan and the others could only block a portion of them, and they could not block the younger ones. As long as the fifth mainland had no peers who could stop them, they could only let them enter the fifth pagoda. However, there were too few of them and they were all very young. The strongest among them was only an enlighter. As for the emissaries from the cosmic tree, Chu Yuan could intercept those who were at the fifth tribulation stage, but there were others who could intercept them. Furthermore, there were too many restrictions for emissaries to enter the fifth pagoda. Thus, the cultivators from the cosmic tree were all very young. Hey, you can't attack us. Someone shouted at Sky Blue. Sky Blue looked around. That's why I'm chasing after you. He then waved his hand and a figure walked out. Lu Yin did not recognize this person, but he seemed to be a very young cultivator from the sixth mainland who was a hunter. Perhaps he was a realmling. He's your opponent, Sky Blue said. On the other side, the group from the starry sky tree was disdainful. After such a long time, they had figured out that there were indeed a few freaks in the fifth mainland. Even the fourth young master could not defeat them. However, apart from a limited number of people, the rest could not stop them. Of course, the gap was not that big. 20 years ago, the gap between the cultivators of the same generation on the fifth mainland and the starry sky tree was huge. The fourth young ancestor would have been able to sweep through the fifth mainland's star supremacy tournament. However, with the emergence of Hen Xen, Lu Bujing, and the others, who had brought with them part of the above heaven era's cultivation methods, the gap between the two sides had narrowed significantly. At the very least, the cultivators of the fifth mainland wouldn't be at too much of a disadvantage when fighting against cultivators of the same cultivation level. If they used the Void Wanderers, it wouldn't be difficult for them to win. But now it was a fair fight. The sixth mainland's realmling that Sky Sealan had brought along had defeated half of the cultivators in the starry sky of the trees. He had relied on battle force and domains as well as battle techniques that Sky Sealan had imparted to him as well as his imprint. As for the remaining half, Lu Yin could not stop them, so he could only allow them to enter the fifth tower. He had done his best. Sky Blue watched as the cultivators from the cosmic tree realm entered the fifth pagoda, but he did not care. Lu Yin had only asked them to try their best to stop the cultivators from entering the fifth pagoda. If they could not do so, then there was nothing he could do. After all, he could not personally deal with these young cultivators. This group of people looked to be in their 20s or 30s. Lu Yin did not show himself, as the fifth mainland alone would not be able to stop some of the people from the 4 Libras. They would have to deal with them in the cosmic tree realm. How was Wang Wen? Had he started to act? Lu Yin's departure from the cosmic tree realm had indeed caused the 4 Libras to feel much more at ease. However, when a piece of news reached Xianxia's ears, he was immediately enraged. He did not even care about the safety of the sovereign realm as he descended upon Shenwu Plain. In Shenwu Plain, a man knelt on the dusky ground. His face was pale and his head was lowered. He looked at the ground with eyes filled with fear and despair. Xia Ziheng and Xia Xing stood behind him, and the atmosphere was terrifyingly quiet. At this moment, Xianxia walked out of the void and arrived in front of the kneeling man. His progenitors' might enveloped the man, causing the ground to collapse and the man to cough up blood. The man was a half-ancestor, and he was a half-ancestor who had been hidden underground in Shenwu Plain to watch over criminals. No matter what happened, this person would not appear. Even if Shenwu Plain was facing a calamity, this person would not appear. He only existed for one purpose, and that was to keep an eye on the underground. "Say that again," Xianxia said coldly as he stared at the man. The man closed his eyes and said hopelessly, "That person ran away." Xianxia was furious and cut off the man's arms. Even though the man was a half-ancestor, he couldn't fight back at all. His blood splattered all over the ground, and Xia Ziheng and Xia Xing were terrified. Even when Zhou Xian had attacked Shenwu Plain, the half-ancestor hadn't been so furious. "I told you to keep an eye on the underground and you didn't need to do anything. You could have enjoyed all of Shenwu Plain's resources, and even if Shenwu Plain was destroyed, you didn't have to come out. Now you're telling me that that person ran away?" Xianxia squatted down and stared at the man. He didn't look like a progenitor at all. "Raise your head and look at me." The man's eyes flashed as he raised his head and looked at Xianxia. Xianxia's eyes were filled with savagery. "How did he run away?" "I don't know," the man said helplessly. Fortunately, he was a half-ancestor, or he wouldn't even have the courage to speak in front of Xianxia. "Then how did you discover that he had disappeared?" Xianxia asked again, looking at the man with murderous eyes. The man knew that he wouldn't be able to survive today. "Ancestor Xia, can you not pursue this matter with my clansmen? I just want to find him." "Your clansmen are worthless to me," Xianxia said sternly. The man sighed. He didn't know what would happen to his clansmen, but he had no other choice. "I discovered that the disciple who was collecting the corpses had disappeared, so I immediately went underground to look for him. I discovered that he had disappeared along with that person called Lu Xiaoga." Xianxia frowned. "Lu Xiaoga? Lu Xiaoga is already dead," Xia Ziheng interrupted. When he saw Xianxia looking over, he said nervously, "Ancestor, Lu Xiaoga was abandoned by Lu Xian. He was the one who was captured in Shenwu Plain. That day he disguised himself as Yu Hao and bought time for Lu Xian. We only discovered him when Lu Xian returned." "Lu Xiaoxuan's people?" Xianxia's eyes went wide. Xia Ziheng hurriedly explained, "He was abandoned by Lu Xian. He told me everything he knew about Lu Xian in the fifth mainland, and I killed him with my own hands. If there's any falsehood, I will die a horrible death." Xianxia's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure he's dead?" Xia Ziheng promised, "I killed him with my own hands. There's no way he could have survived." "What if Lu Xian helped him? How can you be sure that Lu Xian didn't leave him alive on purpose?" Xianxia gritted his teeth. Xia Ziheng was terrified as he could sense the ancestor's killing intent. "Ancestor, Lu Xiaoga is definitely dead. If he's not dead, I'm willing to accept any punishment. I swear that I will never be able to improve my cultivation and that I will die a horrible death." Xia Xing didn't say anything. This matter was beyond his control, and neither he nor Xia Ziheng knew who was being held underground. Even the kneeling half-martial ancestor didn't know. He didn't understand why the ancestor was so angry. Fortunately, this matter had nothing to do with him. What do you think? Xiaxinji suddenly asked Xiaxing. Xiaxing was even more shocked. Even though he didn't have much contact with forefather Shenji, he knew that forefather Shenji rarely asked for the opinions of others, especially those of the younger generation. Now that forefather Shenji had asked him, it meant that this matter was so serious that even forefather Shenji was at a loss. Even the matter with Zhou Xian hadn't caused the ancestor to act this way. Xiaxing's mind spun rapidly and he said cautiously, "Ancestor, Zhou Xian shouldn't have anything to do with this." Xiaxinji looked at him calmly. Xiaxing saw that the ancestor didn't say anything, so he took a deep breath. Xia Ziheng and the half-martial ancestor guarding the underground watched him nervously as he continued. Even I, the Xia clan's patriarch, don't know about the situation underground, let alone Zhou Xian. That includes half-martial ancestor Ziheng. The only people who truly know are you and... He glanced at the half-martial ancestor guarding the underground. Zhou Xian couldn't have known about this, so he couldn't have planned anything. Also, half-martial ancestor Ziheng is a half-martial ancestor. Someone who isn't even an emissary couldn't have pretended to be dead in front of him. Half-martial ancestor Ziheng was already very cautious and personally killed Lu Xiaoga. Xiaxinji said, "Are you saying that it's a coincidence?" Xiaxing's face paled. Lu Xiaoxuan's actions in the starry sky of the trees only have one goal, and that is to save the remaining members of the Lu clan. He had Lu Xiaoga stay in Shenwu Heaven to buy time for the Red Garden. It has nothing to do with the people underground. Xia Ziheng hurriedly said, "Ancestor, please understand." The half-martial ancestor who was guarding the underground also said, "Ancestor, please understand." Xiaxinji thought for a moment and the killing intent in his eyes faded. "Find that person for me. Do everything you can but do not expose him." Xiaxing and Xia Ziheng looked at each other, but they didn't know who that person was. Xiaxinji slowly opened his mouth and said something. When Xiaxing and Xia Ziheng heard this, their minds went blank. They were shocked. Him. Find him for me. I will personally capture him, Xiaxinji said in a low voice before disappearing. After Xiaxinji left, the kneeling half-martial ancestor heaved a sigh of relief. Although his arms had been cut off, they could be reattached. The only reason he hadn't died yet was because he had to complete this mission. Xiaxing and Xia Ziheng looked at him. "You already knew?" The half-martial ancestor said bitterly. "Logically speaking, unless I become an ancestor, I will never be able to leave the underground. I never thought that I would be able to leave because of something like this." Xiaxing looked away. Become an ancestor? If this person had even the slightest chance of becoming an ancestor, Ancestor Shenji wouldn't have treated him like this. This was already the peak that this person could reach. Not long after, a large group of people from Shenwu Heaven moved out. They headed to the top realm, middle realm and lower realm to secretly search for someone. Although they didn't cause much of a commotion, even Xiaxing had moved out. This meant that Shenwu Heaven's attitude towards this matter was far greater than their attitude towards Zhou Xian. Xiaxinji's clones walked out one by one, avoiding by Wang Yuan and the others. They also spread out throughout the starry sky of the trees to search. Chapter 2386. At the same time, Wang Jing, Bai Qi and the others' reports piqued the four-way balance's interest in the Fifth Mainland's various battle techniques. They were also interested in the wireless goo. 2 months later, the four-way balance finally sent someone to the Fifth Mainland's Heavens sect, hoping to strike a deal with them. The person they sent was Bai Qi. She was Bai Wang Yuan's daughter and had a noble status. Because she had been guarding the fourth base all year round, she had not participated in the banishment of the Lu family, nor had she participated in the pursuit of the remaining members of the Lu family. She had no prejudice against the Fifth Mainland, so she was the most suitable person to negotiate with the Heavens sect. Wang Jing was with her as well. Unfortunately, the trip did not go smoothly. Bai Qi met with Lu Bujing and the other party was Xianxia. Xianxia was the best at doing business in the Fifth Mainland. She had been one of the 3 smartest people in the Outerverse alongside Wang Wen and Wei Rong. Wang Wen was good at controlling the overall situation, Wei Rong was good at scheming, and Xianxia was good at economic suppression. The Heavens sect had not only relied on progenitor Chen's strength to suppress the Heavens, but they had not been able to get the entire Fifth Mainland to cooperate. Xianxia had contributed greatly to this. If not for her, the Fifth Mainland's economy would have collapsed, and the consequences would have been unimaginable. Her role was not below that of Wang Wen and Wei Rong. Discussing business with Xianxia made Bai Qi experience the treachery of merchants for the first time. She was stunned and she even forgot what she had originally wanted to trade. She allowed Xianxia to manipulate her as she threw all of the Fifth Mainland's unwanted items to the cosmic tree. As for Wang Jing, although he was slightly better than Bai Qi, there was a limit. Their statuses were too high and they had never come into contact with business. In this aspect they were sentinels while Xianxia had already become an ancestor. The first time they had come, the two had returned empty-handed. They had even taken away a large number of items that the Fifth Mainland did not want in exchange for resources that the Fifth Mainland desperately needed. Although the results were terrible for Bai Qi and the others, their first transaction had been a success, and they had opened a gap between the cosmic tree and the Fifth Mainland. Another month passed and Bai Qi and Wang Jing came again. This time they brought a pot-bellied middle-aged man with a face full of smiles. The moment Xianxia saw him, she knew something was wrong. This person looked like an old fox, and he was definitely an old fox in the business world. He had guessed correctly. The four cardinal scales were not stupid. They had sent White Qi for the first trade because they thought that the trade with the Fifth Mainland would go smoothly. Who would have thought that they would be fooled? That was why they had brought along the Starry Sky Tree, who was known as a business genius. The battle between this person and Xianxia was an eye-opener for Bai Qi and Wang Jing. Only now did they realize how powerless they were when facing Xianxia. This trade, from the very beginning to the discussion of the price, the two of them probed each other for 3 whole days. For 3 whole days, the two of them did not mention the specific content of the trade. They kept probing each other, and the purpose of the probing was to confirm the content of the trade. The final result was that four-way scales did not get what they wanted the most, but it was still a gain. They could trade for wireless goo and nothing else. After leaving above the sky sect, the middle-aged man looked back with a look of admiration. He's so young, yet he has such business acumen. This wasteland really does produce geniuses. What's going on? Bai Qi was puzzled. She did not understand at all. The middle-aged man replied respectfully, "This wasteland has never thought of completing the trade with us." He paused for a moment and reorganized his words. It should be said that Above the Sky sect has never thought of completing the trade with four-way scales. What do you mean? Bai Qi's expression sank. Wang Zheng's gaze flickered. The middle-aged man said, "Even though they did not say it clearly, I can guess that they want to find 1 or 2 representatives in the Starry Sky Tree to trade for war resources. And this representative is definitely not from four-way scales." "Then who is it?" Bai Qi frowned. The middle-aged man shook his head. "I can only guess this much. As for who the representative is, it is not something I can guess." Finding a representative to avoid four-way scales was already at the level of a contest between 2 starry skies. It was not a simple trait, so he naturally did not know. Wang Jing looked at Above the Sky sect. This was Lu Xiaoshuan's will. He would not allow four-way scales to use these resources to strengthen themselves. His will was spread to the entire Fifth Mainland. This kind of dominance was too terrifying. Bai Qi also thought of this, and she returned to the Starry Sky Tree with a sullen expression. In Above the Sky sect's main hall, Xianxia stood up and stretched, revealing her beautiful curves. "I'm so tired. That perverted uncle is too strong. I almost got tricked by him." Lu Yin walked out and laughed. "Didn't you guard your bottom line in the end?" Xianxia rolled her eyes. "Daoist, can you speak properly? What do you mean guard my bottom line? It's as if he'll do anything to me." Lu Yin looked in the direction of the technocracy. "They won't give up." Xianxia shrugged. "That will depend on Wang Wen. It's not easy to find a representative and there's a lot of pressure on him." Lu Yin did not say anything else and continued his seclusion. Although it was called seclusion, it was actually more like rest. He did not constantly cultivate, nor did he constantly roll his die. Using too much innate gift was not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes people needed to be more relaxed. More than a month later, Bai Qi was unwilling to give up and brought the middle-aged man back. However, Wang Jing did not accompany them this time. The result was the same. Xianxia was very tired. Trade and commerce had to be maintained, or else Xianxia would not even meet with them. Lu Yin fished by the Sky Sect's lake, and he found the joy of cultivating his mind. The only problem was that Zhao Ran brought him the flower tea that she had invented over the years. Although it tasted good, it had a great impact on his body and mind. What he looked forward to the most was the sapling. The sapling had been absorbing astral source all this time, especially when the liquid had disappeared half a year ago. It should have absorbed a lot of astral source when the astral source had exploded, and it should have condensed a lot of astral source liquid. Lu Yin's fourth tribulation was almost complete, and he could break through to the fifth at any time. As for the sixth tribulation, he would have to rely on the sapling. The sixth tribulation was another qualitative change, and Lu Yin was more concerned about the tribulation with a power level of 1,000,000. It was definitely not any less threatening than the emissary tribulation. It was precisely because of this that Lu Yin was in no rush to break through to the fifth tribulation. He needed a buffer. Regardless of whether one was cultivating or not, time passed very quickly. Another half a year passed in the blink of an eye. It had been a year since Lu Yin had returned to the fifth mainland. During this year, the cosmic tree realm had been very peaceful, at least to the four cardinal scales. However, this was not the case for the middle realm and the lower realm. The fifth mainland, a large group of cultivators poured into the cosmic tree realm, causing a huge commotion. The cultivators of the cosmic tree realm looked down on the cultivators of the fifth mainland, but those who had been able to enter the cosmic tree realm in the beginning were not simple. Conflicts would erupt from time to time, and they would quickly engulf the two realms. Although there were no large-scale battles, there were still small skirmishes. Perhaps this was due to the four cardinal scales instructions. However, the cultivators of the fifth mainland did not suffer any losses. They were all united, and with the help of some of the more powerful cultivators from the fifth mainland, they did not suffer too many losses in the cosmic tree realm. Some of their names even became more famous, such as Haizid Shenwei, who had clashed with the Wang family when he had first arrived. After he had gone to the middle realm, he had clashed with some of the families and even destroyed one of them. Yang Ji, the ruler of the Radiant World, had come to the cosmic tree realm and had fought with many cultivators there, such as Mavis. She wanted to find traces of the Mavis family in the cosmic tree realm, such as, one after another, the cultivators of the fifth mainland entered the cosmic tree realm. Although there were many conflicts, they were not stupid. They did not fight with the behemoths of the four cardinal scales. Otherwise, they would easily attract the attention of a half-martial ancestor. In the middle realm, a beautiful woman stood in midair, constantly searching for something. Not long after, she stared at the cracked ground of the grassland below. Found it. With that, she descended and slashed at the cracked ground. The edge of the blade distorted the void, covering the entire grassland and tearing the ground apart. The blade spread out inch by inch, covering an area of several hundred miles. Not a single blade of grass was left alive. After that slash, the woman stared down. As the dust settled, she frowned. It didn't work? As she thought about it, she slashed again, but it was still useless. Then she slashed again and again. A transparent coffin lay quietly in the ground of the grassland. Inside the coffin, a person was curled up and sleeping soundly. No matter how the woman attacked, the transparent coffin did not move at all. There was not even a scratch on it. After an hour, the woman panted heavily and stared at the coffin in disbelief. Where did such a monstrous coffin come from? I can't even cut through it. No matter what, she was an enlighter who had cycled 40 times, and the information she had received had clearly stated that this person might not even be an enlighter. Why did he have such a powerful external defensive item? Did she need an emissary to act? After thinking about it, the woman descended and walked over to the transparent coffin. She looked at the sleeping man and took a deep breath. Then she straightened her clothes and revealed her shoulders. She took another deep breath and her expression relaxed. With a faint smile, she raised a hand and knocked on the coffin. Inside the coffin, Wang Wen opened his sleepy eyes and looked outside in a daze. It's daybreak. The moment he looked outside the coffin, a beautiful face entered his vision. Wang Wen suddenly stood up and with a thump, his forehead hit the coffin's lid. He almost fainted from the impact and he clutched his head in pain as he slowly lay down. I'm dizzy, I'm dizzy, I'm dizzy. Hey, are you all right? The woman was bewildered. If this guy had used a bit more force when he got up, would the mission have been completed? Wang Wen waved his hand. I'm fine, I'm fine. He rubbed his head. I almost broke my brilliant brain. The woman looked at him quietly, her eyes filled with concern and curiosity. "Why are you in the coffin?" she asked. Wang Wen calmed down and sat down in the coffin facing the woman's gaze. "Sleeping. But only the dead sleep in coffins." The woman was confused. Wang Wen blinked. "Why would the dead need to sleep?" The woman chuckled. "You're really interesting. It's already daybreak and you still want to sleep?" Chapter 2387. Wang Wen looked around and exclaimed, "Where's the grassland? Where is this place?" The woman replied, "It was like this when I came." "What's wrong with you?" Wang Wen scratched his head. "Did something happen to my brain? It was still grassland when I slept last night." He then looked at the woman. "Who are you?" The woman smiled. "I'm lost. Can you come with me?" "No," Wang Wen replied decisively. The woman was confused. "Why?" "Tired. Didn't you just sleep?" "I overslept, so I'm even more tired." The woman was speechless. "Then I'll wait for you. I'm lost and don't know where this is. I don't dare to walk alone." Wang Wen looked at her for a while and hesitated before saying shyly, "Why don't you squeeze in since the coffin is very big?" The woman was delighted. "Can I? Actually, I'm quite scared too." "Then forget it, I won't force you," Wang Wen replied. The woman panicked. "I said I was scared outside, not inside the coffin." Wang Wen said, "You should have said so earlier. I thought you were scared that I was a bad person." "Of course you're not a bad person. You look like a good person. But you look like a bad person to me." The woman was confused. Wang Wen looked at her and laughed. "I'm just joking. Why are you so serious?" "Ha." The woman laughed dryly. "Then can I go in?" "Of course, come in," Wang Wen invited. The woman was happy and her eyes were filled with killing intent. "You've wasted so much time talking. I'll kill you when I get in." "How do I open it?" "Open it yourself." "I won't." "Sister, have you ever seen a coffin open from the inside?" The woman was stunned for a while. His words made sense and she realized that he was messing with her. She gritted her teeth and her face turned pale. "If I could open it from the outside, I would have done it long ago." Wang Wen pursed his lips. "Opening it from the inside is called haunting." "Open it." The woman couldn't take it anymore and shouted. Wang Wen was shocked. "Why are you angry? Weren't we having a good chat?" "I'm warning you, open it or I'll make sure you don't even have a corpse." The woman stopped pretending and pointed her knife at Wang Wen. Wang Wen simply hugged his head and curled up. "Sister, calm down. You must calm down." The woman raised her blade and slashed down. Suddenly, a hoe appeared behind her and smashed down. The woman's expression changed. She turned around and her blade collided with the hoe. With a bang, her body was sent flying and heavily smashed into the ground. Her blade flew out of her hand and landed far away. She coughed up a mouthful of blood and stared at her original spot. Nong Lai. The person who appeared beside the coffin was none other than Nong Lai. This was the area of the seed garden. Wang Wen raised his head and was pleasantly surprised to see Nong Lai. "You're from the Nong family?" Nong Lai looked at Wang Wen speechlessly. "Don't tell me you're working for Lu Yin." Wang Wen was delighted and he very naturally opened the coffin before putting it away. He then smiled at Nong Lai and said, "Above sky sex Wang Wen, nice to meet you." Nong Lai was puzzled. "How did you get here alive?" This was also the woman's question. After this person had been sent from the top realm to the middle realm by the Wang clan, he had directly gone to the Lu clan. It was also because of this that the people behind her had determined that this person might be a member of the Fifth Mainland's heavenly sect, and had sent her to hunt him down. However, this was only a guess, which was why they had sent her. They were certain that this person was an emissary. The woman watched as Wang Wen opened the coffin and coughed up blood in anger. This guy had been toying with her from the very beginning. Nong Lai sized up Wang Wen and then looked at the woman. "I know who ordered you to kill him. Go back and tell your master that he won't have a chance after coming to my seed garden." The woman glared at Wang Wen and then limped away. Wang Wen shouted, "Sis, let's sleep in coffins together in the future." The woman coughed up blood again and glared at Wang Wen. She then left without another word. Nong Lai felt even stranger. Was this guy crazy? Not long after, Wang Wen was brought to the seed garden, where he met the Nong family's head, Nongya. The cosmic tree was already used to the Nong family's style, and they would often discuss matters in the fields. This was Wang Wen's first time meeting them, but he was not surprised. He took off his shoes and rushed into the fields, causing Nong Lai to roll his eyes. Bro, we have shoes to change into. Wang Wen waved a hand. No need. This is more comfortable. Nong Lai watched as Wang Wen walked barefoot towards Nongya, and the suspicion in his eyes lessened. This person was not bad. You want the Nong family to be your agent? That's going to offend the four sides of the scale. In the fields, Nongya hugged his hoe and glanced at Wang Wen. Wang Wen smiled. How can I earn money without offending anyone? Wang Wen stayed at the Nong family for a few days, talking to Nongya every day. On the fourth day, Bai Qi came to the seed garden. Nongya met with Bai Qi alone. Ask that person to come out. I know he's one of Lu Xiaoshuan's men. He wants the Nong family to be the fifth mainland's agent in the fight for resources, Bai Qi said directly. Nongya said, since he's here, he's a guest. If he's not willing, I'm sorry, but I can't let you see him. Bai Qi and Nongya looked at each other. Lu Xiaoshuan's representative in the cosmic tree doesn't even dare to meet me? Nongya didn't know how to answer, so Nong Lai came and whispered in his ear, he doesn't dare to meet you. Nongya was speechless. That was too cowardly. He looked at Bai Qi helplessly. I'm sorry, senior, but he doesn't want to come out. Bai Qi frowned. Ever since she came into contact with the people of the fifth mainland, she felt that nothing was going well. Now this person in the Nong family didn't even want to meet her. These people made her feel strange. Nong family leader. I don't know what the Nong family plans to do, but in any case, the cosmic tree should unite against the fifth mainland and not be instigated, Bai Qi said. Nongya looked at Bai Qi. Yes, we should unite. Then what about the new void corridor? Bai Qi looked at him. Nongya continued, the new void corridor almost blocks the people of the Nong family, including the mountain sea inheritance of the fifth mainland. The half-ancestors of the Nong family can't go there either. Is this what you mean by unite? Bai Qi said, I'll report this to the ancestor. Then we'll talk about it after you're done, Nongya said and was about to send her off. Bai Qi stared at Nongya and wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. The Nong family wasn't Xian Academy and they couldn't be threatened. Otherwise, this family that was close to the Lu family would have ceased to exist long ago. It wasn't just the Nong family, there was also the Lu family and the Ghost Abyss. If possible, the four-way scales would have destroyed them long ago, but they had always been fine because they had progenitors. Without them, the cosmic tree would be unstable. Now, the fifth mainland wanted to use a representative to split the cosmic tree in half, and everyone could see that. But that wasn't the main point. It wasn't the representative but rather the attitude of the Nong family. If the Nong family was willing to become the representative, it meant that they were leaning towards the fifth mainland, and the situation would become serious. Lu Xiaoxian wasn't in the cosmic tree, but he was still thinking of ways to influence it. Nong family leader, you should have heard of my father's temper. Sometimes he would rather die than live in dishonor. Some people are blinded by hatred and we can't gamble with all of humanity. Bai Qi left, leaving behind her final words. This wasn't a threat to the Nong family, but rather to Lu Yin and the entire fifth mainland. Lu Yin wanted to rope in the Nong family and the Lu family to isolate the four-way scales, but it didn't matter if he could do it or not. Even if he could, what impact would it have on the four-way scales? Just as Bai Qi had said, it was better to die in dishonor than live in dishonor. Even if Lu Yin had more progenitors, would they be able to defeat the four-way scales? So what if they could defeat the four-way scales? Who would resist the Eternals? The Lu family had been exiled and it seemed like the four-way scales had won, but all of the four-way scales' ancestors were stuck in the sovereign realm and the outer realm, including the Nong family and the Lu family's ancestors. If the four-way scales were defeated, how could the remaining people defend the cosmic tree? Bai Qi's meaning was simple. If the Nong family and the Lu family sided with Lu Yin, then humanity would be in danger. Everyone could see Lu Yin's hatred for the four-way scales, and what they needed now was balance. Nongya pondered this, but he was actually leaning towards Lu Yin. After all, the Nong family had once sided with the Lu family. Now they had to carefully consider this matter. Bai Qi wasn't good at negotiations and she had only spoken the truth. However, sometimes the truth was more intimidating than anything else, and this was something that Wang Wen had not expected. Wang Wen had heard the conversation between Bai Qi and Nongya, and the last sentence made him regret not coming out. Now that Bai Qi had left, Wang Wen saw that Nong Ye's gaze towards him had changed. He sighed as he had failed. When he thought of this, he rubbed his face. I heard that the four-way scales wants to monitor all of the pawn civilizations? Yun Tingting had been here for almost a year now, beneath a ladder far away from the seed garden. Lu Yin and Bai Wangyuan had reached an agreement and she had been released. The Smoke Cloud sect was the gatekeeper of the four-way scales in the Middle Realm, and Bai Wangyuan had not made things difficult for her. Instead, he had sent someone to send her to the Smoke Cloud sect. After returning to the Smoke Cloud sect, many things had changed. She had once been the high and mighty princess of the Smoke Cloud sect, and her father Yun Mubai had been the sect master. No one had dared to provoke her. Now Yun Mubai had been exposed as a redback and had been captured by a humble family decades ago. No one knew if he was alive or dead, and the entire Smoke Cloud sect looked at her strangely. After all, she had been captured by Lu Yin for decades and there were rumors everywhere. The current sect master of the Smoke Cloud sect was Yun Wang. Although he doted on her as usual, he no longer had the same feelings as before. Reality was changing and she didn't know where she should go. She might as well stay under the ladder and be a little busy. Cousin, you haven't given an answer about the sect's suggestion, Yun Yang said to Yun Tingting. Yun Tingting didn't even look at him. I won't go to the fifth mainland. That's the fifth pagoda. I heard that the inheritance there is quite powerful, Yun Yang urged. Yun Tingting looked at him. I heard that you've interacted with Lu Yin under the alias Long Seven? Yun Yang felt awkward when this was brought up. He had been unlucky every time he had interacted with Long Seven. Why are you bringing this up? I'm just reminding you that no one can take advantage of him, Yun Tingting said. That's why they thought of you. After all, you've been in the fifth mainland for so many years, so you should be more familiar with it. Yun Tingting frowned. They. Chapter 2388. Yun Yang's expression changed slightly and he coughed. Cousin, there are guests here. I'll go greet them. Yun Yang, speak clearly. Who are they? Yun Yang wanted to run, but he was caught by Yun Tingting. Although Yun Tingting had been trapped at Mount Supreme for decades, her cultivation had not stagnated. They had been cultivating all this time and she had already gone through more than 30 cycles when she first became an enlighter. She had made some progress, but Yun Yang had only gone through 25 cycles after several decades, which was a far cry from Yun Tingting. Cousin, let me go. There are guests here. They really are guests. He pointed down the ladder. Yun Tingting followed his gaze and saw a few figures. The 4 cardinal scales are transporting them. Sure. Cousin, this matter is even more secretive. Don't tell anyone or we'll be in big trouble. Yun Yang quickly stopped her. Yun Tingting was puzzled. I've never seen anything like this in the past year. I thought they stopped doing it. Yun Yang replied, it's not that they stopped doing it but that they only do it after a long period of time. They're just afraid of being exposed. Zhou Xian caused a ruckus once. Anyway, don't worry about this. Just let me go. Yun Tingting released him. If you don't tell me who they are, then don't expect me to take you to the fifth mainland. Yun Yang did not have time to say anything else, and he quickly went down the ladder to carefully arrange something. Yun Tingting just watched. There were some things that she knew but she did not care about. When her father had still been alive, there were some things that had been handed over to Yun Yang. In her father's words, she was not allowed to do anything dirty. Yun Tingting fell into a daze when she thought about her father. Hatred for Lu Yin rose in her heart, but she was powerless to do anything about it. Suddenly she saw a familiar figure. That person. At the bottom of the ladder, Big Sis stared at a few people who were whispering to Yun Yang and prepared to make a move. She had only been passing by, but she had coincidentally bumped into those people and noticed traces of astral fluid. As the former Netherworld ancestor, what had she not done? She often absorbed astral fluid and she was one of the earliest people to do so. She had been discovered by the martial ancestor and she had paid a heavy price. Although those people had concealed the astral fluid, they could not hide it from her. She did not only want to obtain the astral fluid, but she also wanted to know how these people had absorbed it. As for the fact that absorbing the astral origin fluid would harm the mother tree, she was a pirate and had never considered such things. The one who spoke was Little Stutterer. He had been brought along by Big Sister and when he spoke, Big Sister slapped him on the head. Shut up. If it weren't for the fact that you still have some use, I wouldn't have brought you along. Little Stutterer clutched his head. There's someone. What do you mean there's nothing? Shut up. Big sister slapped him again. Little stutterer panicked. Send. Big sister narrowed her eyes. Little stutter, I think you're getting carried away. I told you not to speak but you insisted. Little stutterer pointed at Yun Tingting. Yes. Big sister blinked and looked over, meeting Yun Tingting's gaze. Yun Tingting was currently staring at her. The moment their eyes met, she recognized Big Sis and exclaimed, Big Sis? This group of people had been released by Lu Yin in the Above the Sky sect, and they knew quite a bit about the Fifth Mainland. This naturally included Big Sister, who was a very famous person. After all, she was the person closest to Lu Yin. Yun Tingting recognized Big Sister, but Big Sister did not recognize her. Little Stutterer did not recognize her either. He had only seen her staring at them, which was why he had thought that he had been discovered. However, it was mainly because he had a guilty conscience. Big Sister had just told him that they were going to rob them. When they heard the words Big Sister, many people looked over. Yunyang looked over as well. Big Sister? Big Sister was speechless. There were even acquaintances here? Without further ado, she glanced at those people and suddenly attacked. A terrifying aura erupted and swept through the area, shattering the ladder. Yunyang howled when he saw this, and he did not hesitate to lie down. Something had happened again. The expressions of the people who had been transporting the astral origin liquid changed. Ever since Lu Yin had caused a ruckus, transporting astral origin liquid had not been a good job. Furthermore, the sect had recently ordered that the astral origin liquid should not be exposed. They had been on tenterhooks all this time, so how had they still been discovered? Faced with Big Sister's current power level of over 1 million, a man charged out from behind the cultivators. He looked ordinary, but he also erupted with a power level of over 1 million. Although he looked young, his eyes were filled with vicissitudes. There was a bang as Big Sister and the man collided. In that instant, the man used the frigid Immortal sect's Wind God battle technique, Wind God's Defense, in an attempt to block Big Sister and send her flying back. However, he was shocked to find that Wind God's defense had been torn apart. The black-purple energy around Big Sister formed a visible current that forcefully blasted apart the Wind God battle technique and sent the man flying. Both of his arms were shattered, and at the same time, that energy invaded his body and prevented him from circulating his astral origin energy. Big Sister did not even look at the man as she grabbed at the cultivators behind him. At that moment, another figure charged out from the side and slapped at Big Sister. Big Sister had not paid much attention to that man's attack, as the black-purple energy had easily destroyed him. However, she felt that something was amiss when facing this person. Bang! There was another collision and the void was torn apart. An unparalleled destructive force swept through the area, causing the ladder to tremble. Yun Tingting watched in shock. She had not expected such a turn of events. As for Yunyang, he had already fainted from the impact. The person who had appeared later exchanged a palm with Big Sister, but neither side had the upper hand. Big Sister was shocked. She had used a power derived from the evil scripture, and it was overbearing and strange. However, this person's power was similarly overbearing and definitely not ordinary. The person opposite her was just as shocked. Scram! Big Sister sneered. You're courting death. Then a giant hammer appeared in her left hand and smashed at the person opposite her. A long saber appeared in the person's hand as well, and he slashed at her. Bang! There was a shocking collision and they were once again evenly matched. Big Sister was even more shocked. She had used the heaven-shocking hammer, which came from the era of above heaven. Ordinary battle techniques would not be able to block it. The person opposite her was the same. The power he had used was not something an ordinary person could block. Hiding your head but showing your tail. Who are you? Big Sister shouted. In the current era, there were very few people who could match her in terms of cultivation. The person opposite her suddenly retreated, no longer bothering with Big Sister. As for the cultivators who had been transporting the astral origin liquid, he had also abandoned them. Just as Big Sister was feeling puzzled, the void in the distance was sliced apart, and a figure walked out and stared at her. Big Sister's expression changed. Ancestor realm? Not good. Without thinking, she immediately retreated, ignoring the cultivators who were transporting the astral origin liquid. She could not understand, wasn't it just astral origin liquid? Why was he using Ancestor realm? The Ancestor realm expert who had suddenly appeared was Xianxia, but it was not his main body but his ancestor realm clone. He glanced at Big Sister before looking at the person who was fighting with her and chased after him. Big Sister looked back and saw that he had disappeared. So he had chased after that person. She had wanted to leave. But after thinking for a moment she turned around and chased after him. Not long after, during the Battle of Huai Yuan, ancestor realm power surged, accompanied by furious roars. Finally, everything ended, and apart from the devastation on the ground there was nothing left. Big Sister emerged from the ground, and the dark purple energy above her head receded. She had not been discovered in this battle. Although Xianxia's clone also possessed the power of the progenitor realm, and Big Sister was no match for him in a head-on clash, Big Sister had many more tricks up her sleeve. Looking at the empty ground, Big Sister took out the wireless goo. She had discovered something big. In Heaven's Sect, Lu Yin sat by a lake and stared at the center of the lake. There was a cup of steaming hot flower tea beside him, and although it looked terrible, it was very delicious. The wireless goo vibrated and Lu Yin connected. Little 7, I've encountered something strange. Big Sister sent a message. Lu Yin had not expected her to contact him. What is it? I met Xianxia. Big Sister sent a message. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold. Isn't he in the sovereign realm? How did you meet him? Is he causing trouble for you? Causing trouble for others? Wait, he's not others. How should I put it? He's causing trouble for himself. Lu Yin did not understand. What do you mean? I saw a Xianxia chasing another Xianxia. Although the Xianxia that was being chased was hiding, I'm sure it was Xianxia. I saw it for real, Big Sister replied. At that moment the fishing rod moved and a big fish took the bait. Zhou Ran cheered from behind. Your Highness, we caught a fish. Lu Yin passed the fishing rod to Zhou Ran. You do it. He then walked to the side, listening to Zhou Ran's cries of surprise as he contacted Big Sister. Big Sister, did you see it clearly? Is it really Xianxia himself? Definitely. The Xianxia chasing after him is an ancestor with progenitor strength, but he's not very powerful. He doesn't even have an ancestral world. The one being chased is at most at 7 origin tribulations. He's not even a half-ancestor. Even if it's Xianxia's clone, how can someone who isn't even a half-ancestor escape from a progenitor? I don't know about that. Perhaps it's because of the 9 clones. In any case, I'm sure that Xianxia's progenitor clone is chasing after his 7 origin tribulations clone. Lu Yin fell into deep thought. Had one of Xianxia's clones betrayed him? Just like how Xiao Luo had betrayed Xiao Jiuyou? That was interesting. Then again, the 9 clones technique was powerful, but if clones could betray him so easily, then the drawbacks would be too great. Right, I saw someone else. Although I don't have much of an impression of him, I remember him. He's your enemy, Lu Xiaoga, Big Sister said. Lu Yin was surprised. You saw Lu Xiaoga? It's him. He hid far away during the battle. If I hadn't chased after him to watch the chase, I wouldn't have noticed him. He ran away with Xianxia's clone. Lu Yin was even more surprised. That clone was able to avoid Xianxia's progenitor clone, but you saw Lu Xiaoga run away with him? Big Sister's eyes narrowed as she replied, I feel like you're looking down on me. Are you saying that I can't compare to Xianxia's clone? Wedding on the 9th. Thank you, brothers, for your support. I'll start updating tomorrow. Thank you. Although I'm busy, I still want to be happy together. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Chapter 2389. Lu Yin was speechless. Sis, that's not what I meant. After all, you're not even a half-progenitor yet. Can one's realm represent everything? I can do it. Even if 9 mountains and 8 seas came, it would still be the same, let alone Xianxia's progenitor clone. I can find anyone I want, and that Xianxia clone won't be able to escape. Lu Yin straightened up. Since that's the case, sis, do me a favor and go cause trouble for him. Which one? Xianxia's clone, of course. Cause trouble so that he won't be able to see Lu Xiaoga. Big Sis understood. I can, but I don't want to do it. It's too tiring. Lu Yin's expression turned solemn. Sis, I've always felt that you're the greatest goddess in the universe. Big Sis' face twitched. Disgusting. Just you wait. She then stared in a certain direction, licked her lips and rushed out. Plop. Lu Yin turned around and blinked. Zhou Ran had been dragged into the lake by the fish, and she was in a very sorry state. She swam out of the water and felt wronged. Your Highness, the fish ran away. Lu Yin laughed and pulled her back up. Let it run away. Let's continue fishing. Yes, I'll definitely catch a big fish for your Highness to stew in flower tea. Lu Yin raised his brows. Fish stewed in flower tea? Was there a connection between the two? He looked at the strange cup of flower tea not too far away. Zhao Rant's path was becoming stranger and stranger. In the astral tree below the ladder, the little stutterer was at a loss. Big sis doesn't want me anymore? Many people had fainted, and the little stutterer looked at the cultivators who were transporting the astral fluid. He swallowed hard and mustered his courage to rush over, grab a cosmic ring and run. Before he left, he didn't forget to cut off one of their fingers so that there would be more blood. Many people saw this scene, but no one dared to stop him, afraid that something bad would happen. As for the man who had exchanged a palm strike with Big Sis, he wanted to help the little stutterer escape, but the little stutterer's speed was unparalleled, and Lu Yin had once relied on him to escape. The man's arms had been shattered and he could not activate his astral vortex. He could only watch as the little stutterer disappeared, and he was enraged. A mere enlighter had actually dared to steal his astral fluid? He spat out a mouthful of blood before he fainted. Little stutterer didn't know that what he was doing was extremely dangerous. If it wasn't for Big Sister's power causing too much damage to the man, he could have killed him with just a flick of his finger. On the other side, two figures were walking carefully in the forest. One of them was Lu Xiaoga. You won't chase after us, right? Lu Xiaoga asked in a calm tone. A hoarse voice came from another person's mouth. No, I used my 9 clones to create this. If I'm heavily injured, he'll also be heavily injured. That's good, Lu Xiaoga said. I have to thank you. If you hadn't warned me not to risk my life against that woman, I might not have been able to escape. As he spoke, the man with the hoarse voice raised his head. Under the dim light, his face looked exactly like Xianxia's. However, compared to Xianxia, this man's face was much gloomier. His eyes were more ferocious and he seemed to have experienced a lot. Lu Xiaoga replied, She's one of Lu Yin's people. I'm only warning you because I don't want Lu Yin to discover you. Otherwise, there'll be even more trouble. Zhou Xian. That's right. That kid was actually able to reach this step. Even if the Lu family wasn't exiled, he shouldn't have been able to reach this step. Who would have thought that the Lu family's exile would actually help him? He left you in Shenwu Plain. You hate him? Lu Xiaoga smiled. Why would I hate him? We weren't friends in the first place. That's how the cultivation world is. There's no right or wrong and there's no need for hatred. All that matters is defeat. He then looked up at the top realm. We can't stay in the astral tree realm any longer. Let's think of a way to leave. Lu Xiaoga asked. Descend to the mortal realm. The abandoned lands. Lu Xiaoga shook his head. The abandoned lands will only make us Lu Yin's prey. Compared to the 4 cardinal scales, I don't want to meet him even more. He's a much greater threat to us. Someone's chasing us. The person with the hoarse voice pushed Lu Xiaoga aside. Hide further away. He then turned around, his divine martial chi surging as a blade appeared in his hand. Big Sis sneered and charged out. How dare you ruin my plans? Stay here. She then smashed down with her hammer. Boom. There was a loud sound as the shockwave sent Lu Xiaoga flying. Lu Xiaoga crashed into the ground and coughed as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Why was Big Sis chasing after him? Even Xianxia's progenitor clone had not been able to catch up to him. At that moment the wireless goo vibrated and Lu Xiaoga looked down inside. Lu Yin had indeed been discovered. He did not hesitate and connected to Lu Yin. Is that Xianxia's clone? In the 5th mainlands above Heaven sect, Lu Yin sent a command to the wireless goo. At this moment Big Sis was fighting with that person. Lu Xiaoga replied, That's right. He looked up and saw that Xianxia's clone had no time to pay attention to him, but Big Sis was facing him and occasionally glancing over. When he saw this, Lu Xiaoga knew that this was Lu Yin's arrangement. What's going on? Lu Yin asked. Lu Xiaoga replied, I was imprisoned in the underground of divine martial heaven. I just happened to run into him and escaped with him. Lu Yin replied, You know that's not what I want to ask. Lu Xiaoga replied, Remove the control for me and I'll tell you what you want to know. Are you trying to negotiate with me? Just removing the control in exchange for information that will excite you. It's worth it. Excite me? Lu Yin had only contacted Lu Xiaoge to find out what had happened to Xiaxinji's clone. Even if a clone had betrayed him, Lu Yin would not be able to deal with Xiaxinji for the time being. After all, they had already reached an agreement. However, Lu Xiaoge had actually said that the information would excite him. Lu Xiaoge's lips curled up. Brother Lu, this clone is related to the Lu family's banishment. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. Secret technique? Prison lock? It seems like Brother Lu knows something. Since that's the case, your conditions aren't too much, right? Lu Yin muttered to himself. Brother Lu, you can take your time to think about it. You won't lose out on this condition. Lu Xiaoge was certain that he had Lu Yin under control, so he ended the call and put away the wireless goo before running off in another direction. Seeing Lu Xiaoge leave, Big Sis did not know if she should catch him, but even if she did, it would not be that easy. Xiaxinji's clone was on par with her, and neither could do anything to the other. Woman, get lost. Xiaxinji's clone barked, his voice growing hoarse. Big Sis sneered, I'm not someone you can scold. She then smashed down with the hammer in her right hand while a blood-red lotus appeared in her left. Xiaxinji's clone's expression darkened and he raised his hand. Chains appeared out of thin air and bound Big Sis along with the hammer. This was a secret technique. The moment he did so, he turned around and left without hesitation. Dark purple energy flowed around Big Sis's body, bewitching yet strange. She immediately broke the chains, and when she looked up again, Xiaxinji's clone had already left. He had already taken Lu Xiaoge away. She snorted and used the wireless goo to contact Lu Yin. Little Seven, how is it? Lu Yin stretched lazily. Sis, can you find them? Big Sis raised her head. No problem, I can find anyone who has fought with me. That's good, I'll go find them myself. Lu Yin took off his fishing cloak and bamboo hat and put away the wireless goo. It had already been a year and it was time for him to go out. During this year he had gone into closed-door cultivation and fishing to relax. In Kue Luo's words, he had been slacking off. An emissary could casually go into closed-door cultivation for hundreds or even thousands of years, and he still had time to fish during this time. What kind of cultivation was this? Only Lu Yin himself knew that he had entered the time-stop space more than 20 times during this year, and that he had rolled 6 pips 6 times. It was a pity that he had not been able to fuse with anyone of value and had wasted a lot of money. Cultivating in the time-stop space 20 times was equivalent to 20 years, which was only 20 seconds in the outside world. During this time he had increased his serious art from 110,000 stars to 200,000 stars. Although he was still 180,000 stars away from the 6th level, he was not far from it. His battle force at the imperishable Palm Realm was also becoming more condensed. The Progenitor's Scripture, Reversal Step, Visualization, Ian Flow Scripture, Sky-Toppling Palm, and even his Sourcebox arrays had all improved slightly in the time-stop space. This time he had to disguise himself to avoid any possible ambushes from Madman Lu, and he also had to take care of some matters. There were some things that even Wang Wen could not handle no matter how smart he was, so Lu Yin had to deal with them himself. In the invisible void, the sapling swayed its green leaves as it absorbed the astral source. The sapling was very happy to see Lu Yin, and its branches drooped down to stroke his chin. Lu Yin had thought that it would be lonely if he left it here to absorb the astral source, but he soon discovered that it was not lonely at all. In fact, it was very happy. It liked to quietly absorb the astral source and slowly grow. This reminded Lu Yin of the mother tree. Since the sapling had its own consciousness, the mother tree should have as well, but he had never heard of anyone being able to communicate with it. If it wasn't me and someone else came, would you be able to communicate with them? Lu Yin muttered to himself as he stroked the sapling. The sapling's leaves drooped down and it looked very dejected. Lu Yin smiled. Don't worry, I'll come here often. The sapling was very happy, and it swayed its branches to condense some crystalline astral source liquid. Lu Yin hurriedly took it. There was a lot of astral source liquid this time, and it was several times more than what he had given to senior brother Qing Ping. Will this amount of astral source liquid affect your growth? Lu Yin was worried, as the 4-way scales had absorbed the astral source liquid from the mother tree. In the Lu family's opinion, this would affect the mother tree's growth, and the sapling's growth would also be affected. The sapling swayed back and forth happily. As long as it could help Lu Yin, it was willing to do anything. Luin smiled. You've worked hard. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly thought of something and looked at the sapling. You really like that big tree that can run away, right? Don't worry, we'll find it sooner or later. When we do, we'll catch it and play with you. The sapling grew even happier as it really liked that big tree. A few days later, outside the technocracy's new sky corridor, a very ordinary-looking man with a large mole on his face appeared. He had a sparse stubble on his chin and he gave off a rather decadent feeling. There was a miniature version of a hellworm on his shoulder, but it was only the size of a palm. There was also something similar to a platform on his back. This man was Luin. Chapter 2390. With a roar, the hellworm opened its mouth and bared its fangs. Luin glanced over and the hellworm lowered its claws. This fellow didn't have much intelligence. Ever since Luin had tamed it with the slipper when he had first returned to the fifth mainland, it was no different from a pet aside from being afraid of death. It had a one-track mind and would listen to anything it was afraid of. Luin wasn't even worried that it would ambush him. However, he would still teach it a lesson from time to time just in case. It wasn't easy to travel from the fifth mainland to the cosmic tree realm, and one had to go through strict inspection. Luin also couldn't allow disobedient or hostile people to enter. The inspection line was very long, just like when Luin had first gone to the Innerverse and seen people lining up to enter the Astral River Arkansas. There were no less than 10 emissaries around, and there was even Zhang Lin, a half-step ancestor, to ensure that no one could enter the cosmic tree realm. In the past, it would have been unthinkable for an emissary to specifically register a name. However, ever since Luin had taken the Star Alliance away from the Astral Tree realm, other than the remaining ministers of the Lu family, the rest of the emissaries in the Star Alliance would atone for their crimes by performing meritorious deeds. This person was the same. Luin took out the above-the-sky sex token and waved it. The emissary's gaze turned cold. Please enter. This kind of token was specifically used by people to enter the starry sky of trees. Most people used this token to disguise their identity. For example, Big Sister Wang Wen and the others used this token to enter the starry sky of trees. This way, no one would know their whereabouts unless they were recognized in the starry sky of trees. As for the hellworm on their shoulders and the general appointment platform on their backs, Luin looked around and saw that many people had them. He had specifically asked Xianxia to do this a year ago. There was a creature on the fifth mainland that looked like a miniature version of the hellworm, and Luin had asked her to find it and find a way to make it popular. He had even made countless copies of the general appointment platform to cover up the traces of the hellworm and the general appointment platform. This would make it easier for him to disguise himself and enter the cosmic tree realm in the future. He was worried about his safety if he entered the cosmic tree realm alone, and he could easily be exposed if he brought these things with him. Thus he could only use this method to push the trend forward. Fortunately, the results were good and there were many people dressed like him everywhere. In the current fifth mainland, this kind of pet and general appointment platform were everywhere. Any cultivator with a bit of wealth would buy them and equip themselves with them. Luin smoothly entered the astral tree realm and then followed the procedure step by step. He did not leave in secret as he did not want to be discovered by the four-way scales. The Wang family's surveillance of the Xinkong corridor was very strict. Once they discovered that he had left and exposed his identity, many things would become difficult for them to do, especially when they had to face the possibility of killing him at any time. More than 20 days later, Luin stood on the Rainbow Bridge and followed a group of cultivators from the fifth mainland. They were arranged by the four-way scales to head towards the mortal realm. Even in our starry sky of trees, very few people are willing to risk their lives in the mortal world. You people from the abandoned land are quite bold, the four-way balance cultivator said sarcastically. Another person said, once they suffer in the mortal realm they'll understand. They'll definitely cry and shout about going to the middle realm. It's not that easy to survive in the central plane world. I heard that many clans and sects in the starry sky of trees have joined forces to form the Abandonment Alliance. Their goal is to expel these people from the abandoned lands. They're just wasting resources and increasing the risk. They might even bring in a redback spy. A group of fifth mainland cultivators at the rear had pale expressions on their faces. These cultivators from the four-way balance were ridiculing them one after another. It was quite unpleasant to hear. These people are really asking for a beating, even more so than my name. Unfortunately, there aren't many ruthless people in our group. I heard that there were a few ruthless people in the previous batches who taught these cultivators a lesson. One of them was from the Lu family and he should be Lu Yin's relative. How nice would it be for me to have such an arrogant relative, but I'm not that bad either. Lu Yin is my brother. Brother Big Mole, when you return to the fifth mainland, go to the above heaven sect and tell them that you're Qianzhou. Lu Yin glanced at the hand on his shoulder, which came from the chattering person beside him. It was Qianzhou. Lu Yin hadn't expected that he would be traveling the same way as Qianzhou in the starry sky of trees. He had originally wanted to ignore this person, but he hadn't expected this person to target him and call him Brother Big Mole. Lu Yin had already told him that he was in disguise, but Qianzhou kept referring to him as Brother Big Mole. Brother Big Mole, why are you looking at me like that? Don't tell me you want to teach them a lesson. Don't, you're too weak. It's not that I don't like you, but you're definitely too weak. When I see Brother Lu in the future, I'll ask him to help you improve. Just bear with it for now. Qianzhou patted Lu Yin's shoulder. We can only blame our bad luck for not traveling with a few ruthless people. Why don't you go? Lu Yin asked. Qianzhou gestured for him to remain silent and solemnly said, I have an important mission and I can't be recognized. Otherwise the four-way scales will be alerted. Brother Lu asked me to help, so I can't make any mistakes. Lu Yin pursed his lips and didn't say anything else. He had nothing to say to this person. In order to avoid being noticed by the four-way scales, Lu Yin had followed the group for more than 20 days. As long as he reached the mortal realm, everything would be fine. Of course, he hadn't wasted those days either, as Big Sis had been tracking Lu Xiaoga and the others. He had come to the mortal realm because Big Sis had told him that Lu Xiaoga and Xiaxinji's clones were in the mortal realm. A few days later they arrived at the mortal realm. All of the fifth mainland's cultivators saw the boundless coiling ancestral mandala's torso, which seemed to have replaced the sky. They would never forget the shock that they felt for the rest of their lives. From time to time, an obscure and terrifying pressure would sweep across the area. Humans were just a part of the laws of nature here, and they might not even be at the peak. They were not just hunters but also prey. This place stimulated a person's instinctive desire to survive, and this was also the reason why many cultivators wanted to come here. They longed to break through and transform here, but most of them were just throwing their lives away. As soon as they arrived at the mortal realm, they saw a ball of flames that distorted the void hurtling towards them. It was as if the sun had descended, and it brought with it a scorching heat that seemed capable of melting all things. The cultivators who saw it were shocked, as this was an attack from an enlighter, and there weren't many enlighters among the fifth mainland's cultivators. The four-way scales cultivators immediately retreated, as there was no way they could help block the attack. Lu Yin looked up and two figures charged out from behind him and attacked the flames. One of them even used overlaying stacks, which combined with an enlighter's power level to barely disperse the flames. However, they were injured in the process. The four-way scales cultivators were disdainful. You dare to descend to the mortal realm with this level of strength? You're courting death. One of them said, these attacks should be a gift from the Abandonment Alliance. They're in the middle realm and they're descending to the mortal realm to hunt down cultivators from the abandoned lands. There are more and more cases like this. This has nothing to do with us, and it's not like we're the ones who did it. Let them be. Let's go, it's better if they all die. Actually, we should just throw them into the battlefield at the back. The fifth mainland's cultivators hurriedly scattered after the flames were dispersed. They weren't stupid, and it wasn't a coincidence that an attack had appeared right after they arrived. There had to be a problem. Some of them were already planning to head to the middle realm as the mortal realm was too dangerous. Lu Yin walked off the rainbow bridge and raised his arm to contact Big Sis through the wireless goo. Big Mole bro, where are you going? Big brother will bring you along, Qianzhou asked as he came over. Lu Yin glanced at him and then started walking into the distance. Qianzhou hurriedly tried to catch up, but he soon realized that he couldn't. Lu Yin was too fast and he had disappeared in an instant. Qianzhou was stunned. He had used reverse step, but he still couldn't keep up. This was an expert. As a thief who had roamed the fifth mainland for many years, Qianzhou naturally had his own way of judging people. His sense of smell was quite sharp, and he had sensed that this person wasn't simple at first glance, which was why he had tried to worm his way into being friends with him. Now that he realized that this was indeed the case, it was a pity that he couldn't keep up and didn't know this person's background. Qianzhou was a little annoyed. If he had known, he would have gotten closer to Lu Yin. There were 5 districts in the mortal realm, and Lu Yin had been to the 3rd district with Longxi. The ancestral mang was wrapped around the mother tree. Its head was in the 3rd district, its tail was in the 5th district, and the rest were in the torso. Lu Yin took out the dragon saliva soil which had been given to him by the White Dragon clan. This soil had been soaked in the ancestral mang's saliva, and it had a great deterrent effect on astral beasts. This was also the reason why he had been able to instantly cause the Yao Emperor to lose his bearings. This soil was very useful in the mortal realm. Lu Yin took out the soil and no creature in the mortal realm dared to approach it. He successfully met up with Big Sis. She was dissatisfied. What took you so long? Half a month had passed since Lu Yin had left the 5th mainland. He replied, we can't be discovered by the 4-way scales, so we can only take it slow. Alright, let's go in this direction. Big Sis was swift and decisive, and she rushed out after confirming the direction. Lu Yin immediately followed. Along the way, Big Sis gave Lu Yin quite a bit of astral liquid which stunned him. Where is this from? Did you absorb astral liquid? I stole it from the 4-way scales. Little Stutterer stole it from me, so I'll give it to you. Little Stutterer? Lu Yin was puzzled. He's also a pirate. He used to be the disciple of Ji Chong from the Immortal battle group. He's now wandering the world. Ji Chong? Xia Ji's clone's disciple? You dare to bring him along? Right, I remember now. Little Stutterer, he didn't die? No, he ran away very quickly. Lu Yin found it funny. He didn't know when he had met Little Stutterer and Qianzhou during the Star Tower contest, but now they had met again. A day later, the two arrived at a nest of creatures. What should have been a ferocious creature had been turned into roasted meat. It's them, Big Sis said. Lu Yin looked around. Did they leave early? I hope they didn't discover that we were following them. Otherwise we might not be able to find them. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. The more he didn't want it to happen, the more likely it would happen. He extended his domain and suddenly saw a Cloud Connect stone in the corner. Lu Yin walked over and looked at the stone. He shook his head and crushed it with his foot. We've been discovered. They even heard our conversation. Big Sis frowned. That shouldn't be. Even Xianxia himself might not be able to detect my methods. Chapter 2391. You're underestimating Xianxia, Lu Yin said subconsciously. He then sensed the danger in her eyes and quickly changed his words. Of course, even 9 mountains and 8 seas wouldn't be able to detect your methods. The main reason is that they're too cautious and they might leave something behind wherever they go to see if anyone is following them. They definitely wouldn't be able to detect your methods. She snorted and unhappily said, since we've been discovered, then there's nothing we can do. Those 2 rats are pretty hard to find. Lu Yin looked at the shattered cloud pass stone on the ground. This should be Lu Xiaoga's method, as Lu Yin was also wary of him. When he had first thought that he could definitely kill Lu Xiaoga had managed to escape with his life. Lu Xiaoga had even joined the frigid Immortal sect as an ordinary cultivator and become Yu Chen's favorite. He had eventually replaced Yu Chen as the person who could speak to half-ancestors in the frigid Immortal sect. This person was not simple. If Lu Yin wanted to, he could easily take Lu Xiaoga's life. However, Lu Xiaoga had given him a condition that showed his value, which made Lu Yin unable to make up his mind to deal with him. Lu Yin had always used his own value to force others to give in, but he did not have the advantage against Lu Xiaoga. Let's see how long you can hide, Lu Yin muttered to himself before taking out the sticks. Since he could not find Lu Xiaoga and Xianxia, he would go to Unbounded's headquarters. This matter had been on his mind for a long time, and he had to resolve it eventually. Unbounded had too much information, including information on the Redbacks. As long as he could find them, it would be a great contribution to the entire human race. Lu Yin did not expect to be thanked for this, but he also wanted to get rid of the Redbacks. This was everyone's responsibility. Elsewhere, not too far away from Lu Yin and Lu Xiaoga, Xianxia's clone looked at Lu Xiaoga. Someone really followed us? Who? Lu Xiaoga gravely replied, it was just a guess, but now it's confirmed. It's Lu Yin. Zhou Xian. How did he catch up? Xianxia's clone's expression changed and he suddenly looked at his own body. It's that woman. She purposely chased after us, so she must have left something on me. Lu Xiaoga replied, it's fine. Lu Yin knows that we've been exposed, so he won't chase after us. Xianxia's clone sighed in amazement. The youngsters these days are becoming more and more powerful. I never thought that there would be a day when Xianxia would be overtaken by a junior. The times have long since eliminated us. Even by Wang Yuan, Wang Fan and the others from the 9 mountains and 8 seas will also be eliminated by the times. Lu Xiaoga smiled. You can be considered to have started cultivating again, right? Xianxia's clone took a deep look at Lu Xiaoga. Scope. I need to deal with the hidden dangers in my body first. Right, why is Zhou Xian following us? That woman recognized me. I brought you trouble, Lu Xiaoga said apologetically. Xianxia's clone shook his head. It doesn't matter. Once I recover my strength, I'll be able to bring you to look down on the universe. Even Lu Xian won't be able to do anything to you. He then stood up and left. Mockery flashed in the depths of Lu Xiaoga's eyes. These people should really be eliminated by the times. Unbounded? The biggest assassin intelligence organization in the starry sky of the Tree of Trees should have a lot of money. Big Sister licked her lips excitedly. Lu Yin smiled. Yes, a lot of money. The two looked at each other and saw the desire in each other's eyes. Big Sis' pirate instincts had been nurtured by Heizij Lian since she was young, while Lu Yin's was purely instinctive. They watched as the sticks headed in a certain direction and followed closely behind. Lu Yin didn't know how to use it, but Big Sis could. Under her control, she had already sensed the location of the sticks in this part of the universe, and it was actually in the mortal realm. The 4th district is up ahead. I came here specifically to ask around. Strange, why haven't there been any obstructions along the way? Big Sis was puzzled. Lu Yin took out some soil and handed it over. This is dragon saliva soil. Can deter creatures, even half-ancestors. Is that amazing? Wait, dragon saliva? Saliva? Ancestral Mang's saliva. Big Sis blinked. Lu Yin had thought that she was a neat freak like the fog ancestor, but she kept it like a treasure. If this thing is useful, why didn't you take it out earlier? Although my memories are incomplete, I vaguely remember that I had some obsession with the ancestral Mang when I was still the Netherworld ancestor. What obsession? Lu Yin was curious. Big Sis rolled her eyes. How would I know? As they spoke, the two entered the 4th district. With the help of the dragon saliva soil, their path was unimpeded. Lu Yin even saw a terror ant that had stopped in its tracks, as it had been frightened by the smell of the soil. He casually exterminated it as it had caused too much damage to the mother tree's roots and could not be left alive. With their speed, they soon arrived at the 5th district. They had traveled in a straight line, and with the help of the dragon saliva soil, even a half-ancestor would not have been able to travel so quickly. As for envoys, it would take a very long time to travel from one district to another, let alone enlighters or cultivators who were even weaker. To them, the journey to the mortal realm might take them an entire lifetime. Finally, the sticks stopped at a very ordinary mother tree's roots. Beneath their feet, each root was enormous and could even support a planet. Lu Yin looked down, and he had not guessed wrongly. This was where he had seen the sticks when he had fused with the captive envoy. This was the true headquarters of the unbounded realm. Without the sticks' guidance, how could anyone possibly find this place? This is it. Big Sis was puzzled. Lu Yin nodded, and he extended his domain deep into the ground, instantly enveloping an extremely large area. In an instant, an enormous, dark underground space appeared in Lu Yin's mind, and he saw the captive emissary that had no knowledge of the outside world. He saw countless things that had been chewed to pieces, and he saw large amounts of star essence and all sorts of metals piled up like mountains. There were even foreign objects and power vessels. He also saw the corpse that the emissary had accidentally seen when he had merged with it. This is it. Lu Yin exerted some force with his feet, causing the roots to shatter and his body to descend. The envoy, who had no knowledge of the outside world, stared blankly at Lu Yin as he appeared, not knowing what to do. Lu Yin tore through the void and followed his memories deep into the ground, where he saw a fragment of the sticks. It was exactly the same as what he had seen when he had fused with the envoy. Suddenly, danger appeared in front of him as a black dot tore through the void at an indescribable speed and slammed into Lu Yin. Lu Yin had kept his domain active, but even so he had not sensed the black dot's appearance. This black dot was not only fast, but it also tore through his void god's domain and directly slammed into him. Lu Yin felt a sharp pain in his chest as his body was sent flying by a huge force. Big Sis hurriedly caught him. Who's there? Even Lu Yin could not withstand the huge impact and his heart sank. He quickly looked down at his chest and saw the hellworm baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The creature had shrunk to the point where it could stand on Lu Yin's shoulder. He could not react in time, but the hellworm could. It was a progenitor after all. At this moment, the hellworm opened its claws to reveal the black dot. It had the shape of a beetle and was about the size of a fingernail. When Lu Yin saw it, he cried out, "Death bug." As soon as he spoke, the death bug suddenly disappeared, and the hellworm glared at it before disappearing as well. With the death bug's abilities, it was impossible for it to escape from the hellworm's grasp, and it had been caught in the blink of an eye. "Don't kill it," Lu Yin warned. The hellworm looked at the death bug in its claws with interest. Released it, grabbed it, released it, and grabbed it again. It was having a lot of fun. Big Sis was surprised. "That's the death bug that's ranked second on the heavenly beast list?" Lu Yin nodded and said solemnly, "That's it. It can tear apart my void god's domain, and it's so fast that even I can't react in time. If it wasn't for the hellworm, I would have been in danger. The death bug ignores physical defenses, and I don't have the confidence to completely block it. It has the destructive power of a half-progenitor." Big Sis sighed in amazement as she watched the death bug being played with by the hellworm. Its claws clashed with the bug from time to time, producing light sounds that grew louder and louder as the hellworm exerted more force. Legend has it that the death bug is born from a progenitor's body. It's incomparably tough and ignores physical defenses. It seems like it's true. This thing can even resist the hellworm's attacks. Lu Yin turned to look into the distance where a corpse lay. If the death bug was truly born from a progenitor's body, then that corpse was definitely a progenitor. When he thought of this, he walked closer step by step until he was beside the corpse and looked down. The corpse belonged to a man who had been dead for an unknown period of time. Although he looked quite old, he still gave Lu Yin a feeling that his face was like jade. His entire body seemed to emit a faint, gentle white light, as if he was still alive and could wake up at any time. He couldn't really be alive, could he? No one had ever told Lu Yin that the person lying here was a corpse. This person seemed more like he was sleeping. Lu Yin was just about to test if there was any aura when the aura of a half-ancestor appeared within his domain and rapidly approached. He turned around, and Big Sis also turned around at the same time. A figure descended and exclaimed, "How can the decay be so severe?" As they spoke, the newcomer appeared in front of Lu Yin and Big Sis. Lu Yin was stunned. Elder Song. The half-ancestor who had appeared was the Lu family's brilliant sword grandmaster, Lu Song. He had a stooped figure, and he had greatly admired Lu Yin's former alias, Long Seven. He had even been willing to give Lu Yin another chance to view the sword steel, but he had not hesitated to kill Lu Ku when he had been discovered to be a spy. Lu Yin's impression of Elder Song was that he was decisive, and he would not even hesitate to kill a member of his own family. Elder Song was astonished. "Lu Xian, why are you here?" Lu Yin was puzzled. "This is the Realmless headquarters. Why are you here, Elder Song?" Lu Yin had changed back to his original appearance after meeting up with Big Sis. Otherwise, Big Sis would have found it awkward. Elder Song was shocked. "The Realmless headquarters? It's actually here? No wonder no one could find it." When he saw Lu Yin's puzzled look, he explained, "I came to the 5th district to search for a plant called the Three Mulan. This plant is very useful for treating sword wounds, and I happened to pass by here when I noticed that the mother tree's roots were severely decaying, so I came down to take a look." He then looked at Big Sis. "And this is..." She stared at Elder Song. "His sister." Elder Song frowned and was bewildered. Xiaoqian. Chapter 2392. "She's not big sister Lu Qian but another big sister," Lu Yin said. Lu Qian was the eldest sister of the Lu family and the leader of the 7 heroes. They all called her Big Sister Qian, and Elder Song had seen her before and was rather fond of her, which was why he always called her Little Qian. Elder Song nodded. "I knew it." Lu Yin was about to say something, but Big Sister gave him a look with her back to Elder Song. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed and he clenched his fist, but Elder Song suddenly disappeared. Lu Yin struck out with a palm, but he was still a step too late. Big Sister turned around and attacked at the same time, but she didn't discover Elder Song either. She had just transmitted to Lu Yin that she had sensed the aura of a dead bug on Elder Song's body. This bug was only present here, which meant that Elder Song had come into contact with it before. He was someone from Limitless, which was why Lu Yin had acted. Hellworm! Lu Yin shouted. Hellworm held onto the bug tightly and looked around before suddenly turning around to glare behind Lu Yin. Lu Yin turned around and saw that Elder Song had appeared beside the corpse at some point. He grabbed the corpse and smiled at Lu Yin. Lu Yin subconsciously released an emptiness palm, his domain peeling off the void as he tried to trap Elder Song in an empty space. Elder Song took a step forward, his domain not affecting him at all. Even Lu Yin's emptiness palm didn't affect him. Die, old man. Big Sister tore through the void and threw a blood lotus at Elder Song. Elder Song flicked his finger, causing 3 consecutive gusts of wind to shatter the blood lotus. Big Sister was in disbelief. At that moment the hellworm descended, its progenitor's power sweeping out. Elder Song's expression changed and he disappeared with a single step. Lu Yin used his domain to sense the void, but he was unable to detect any traces of Elder Song's movements. That was impossible. Anyone who appeared in this space would leave behind traces. As long as someone saw them, there would be traces left behind by light, and these traces should be detectable by the domain of the empty god realm. However, it was ineffective against Elder Song. That old man knows me, or else he wouldn't have been able to break through my battle technique, Big Sister said gloomily. Chase? The two of them rode the prison flood dragon and instantly rushed out to chase after Elder Song. However, after the prison flood dragon left the underground, it looked around but didn't know where to go. I can't find any traces of him. Lu Yin found this somewhat inconceivable. The caged Wurm was a progenitor, but it couldn't find any traces of Elder Song, who was a half-progenitor. Logically speaking, this was impossible. Although the caged Wurm wasn't very smart and couldn't use its ancestral world, it was still a progenitor. Senior brother Qingping was known to be a half-martial ancestor or battle ancestor, but at most he could only fight against ancestors like Xianxia's clone. It was almost impossible for him to win, just like how it was difficult for him to defeat a half-martial ancestor when he was at the peak of the emissary realm. It was even more impossible for him to escape from the ancestor realm. Elder Song had actually disappeared without a trace in front of the prison flood dragon. Sis, you said that he knows you? Lu Yin suddenly thought of something and asked. Big Sis replied, no one can break through the Blood Lotus battle technique on the first try unless they fight it head-on. Xianxia's clone relied on this battle technique to meet force with force, but that old guy broke through it without hesitation. He sent out 3 gusts of wind that coincidentally hit the Blood Lotus battle technique's weak points and broke it open. This old guy definitely has faced the Blood Lotus battle technique more than once. Ever since I obtained the Yo secret symbol, my memories have been constantly awakening. I only used the Blood Lotus battle technique on the 5th mainland and I rarely used it. I definitely haven't met him before. This is the first time. Aside from me, who else knows this battle technique? Lu Yin thought of Yo Year during the Supreme Tournament. She had also used the Blood Lotus battle technique, but Yo Year had nothing to do with Lu Song. If what you said is true, then this Lu Song might be an old friend of yours from the Above Heaven sect. Lu Yin asked. Big Sis nodded. He's definitely an old friend, but I don't know who he is. I can't remember. Lu Yin looked up at the central realm. Looks like I'll have to make a trip to the Lu family. Big Sis asked. The Lu family? That's one of the few families in the cosmic tree realm that can contend with the 4-way scales, and they're also close to your Lu family. There's someone that you want to rope in. Is it worth it to fall out with them because of Lu Song? Lu Yin's expression turned solemn. That depends on who Lu Song is. If he's a progenitor like you who has awakened the memories of the Above Heaven sect, then it's fine. I'm just afraid. Afraid that he's from the everlasting tribe. Big Sis asked. This was what Lu Yin was most worried about. If Lu Song recognized the Netherworld Ancestors battle technique, then that meant that he had either lived from the Above Heaven sect until now, or he had awakened the memories of the Above Heaven sect like Big Sis. In the worst-case scenario, he was like one of the 7 sky gods. Those 7 old fellows seemed to have come from the ancient era of the Above Heaven sect. The last possibility was the most likely. Lu Song had acted to steal that progenitor's corpse, but it was also because he had been discovered to be related to Limitless. Why would a normal Lu family half-ancestor be related to Limitless? Not only was Limitless an assassin's intelligence organization, but it also had a lot of information on spies. Lu Song had this information but had not revealed it to the public, which meant that he had no stance on this matter, just like Limitless. It was too terrifying for such a person to be hiding in the Lu family. That old guy dared to run away like that. Even if we reach the Lu family, we won't have any evidence. We can't just say that he's from Limitless because we sense the death bug's aura, Big Sis said. Lu Yin also felt a headache coming on. Lu Song had acted before them, which meant that he did not care about his identity being exposed. This also meant that he was not afraid of confronting the Lu family, as he believed that his identity would not be exposed. This was the most troublesome part. No matter what, let's go to the Lu family and find him first. If he's willing to expose his identity to steal that corpse, then there might be something wrong with that corpse, Lu Yin said. However, before heading to the Lu family, he still needed to collect the resources from Limitless headquarters. There were many resources here, but after seeing the resources from the Technocracy and Astral Beast domains, Lu Yin's mental fortitude had greatly increased. These resources were not enough to make him lose his composure. Unfortunately, many of the external treasures had been chewed to pieces, which should have been the death bug's corpse. Lu Yin looked at the death bug in the prison WRM's claws, but he did not deal with it. He would capture it first, as this little thing might be useful. Lu Yin also locked up the emissary who had no knowledge of the outside world. He was not a murderer, and this person was at most a porter. He was neither an assassin nor a spy, so he should not have died. He did not find any information here. It seemed that the place that Xianxia had destroyed was the Limitless Intelligence Center, which could also be considered the headquarters. This place was where all of Limitless resources were gathered, and it was also where Limitless had been created. Now that the headquarters had been destroyed, Limitless did not even have a single assassin left. Lu Yin had thought that he would be able to obtain more information, but it seemed that he had been overthinking. However, he had managed to draw out Lu Song. Before this, he had never thought that there was anything wrong with Lu Song. Although this person was a half-ancestor, Lu Yin had no impression of him, and he had not done anything in the astral tree domain. Let's go to the Lu family, Lu Yin said. This time, Lu Yin wanted to visit both the Lu family and the farmer family. Now he had even more reasons to do so. As usual, there were countless people lining up at the Lu family's sword stele, and the line stretched far away. Not just anyone could view the sword stele, and only those who were within 10 meters of it could view it. Some people had lined up outside the Lu family for decades without being able to get close, but they were still willing to line up. It was easy to imagine how attractive the sword stele was to these people. Lu Yin and Big Sis arrived in disguise, and their domains easily attracted the Lu family's experts. This person was Lu Lu, who had fought with Lu Yin in the past. At the time, both of them had been hunters, but now he was an enlighter and had a vigorous aura. Lu Yin's experience could not be replicated by ordinary people. Only enlighters like Lu Lu, who had completed 30 cycles in a few decades, could be considered normal. Who are you? Lu Lu stared at Lu Yin and Big Sis. Big Sis was puzzled. The Lu family is underestimating us. They actually sent an enlighter kid. When Lu Lu heard this, he confidently replied, "This is my Lu family's territory and no one dares to be impudent. Even a sentinel would dare to come here, let alone an enlighter like me." Big Sis raised her brows. "Kid, you're quite active." Lu Yin stepped forward and looked at Lu Lu, his expression changing. Lu Lu saw Lu Yin reveal his identity and his expression changed. "You." Lu Yin changed his appearance again and gestured for Lu Lu to remain silent. "We're here to visit the Lu family. Please introduce us." Lu Lu looked at Lu Yin in shock. The current Lu Yin was no longer the Long Qi of the past, nor was he Yu Hao. He was a powerhouse who had negotiated with the four-way scales ancestor and had the ability to fight against progenitors. "Please wait a moment," Lu Lu immediately reported. The more important Lu Yin's status was, the less he dared to bring him in. The Lu family had long since guessed that Lu Yin would come, but they had not expected him to come so quickly. Lu Yin's arrival could very well change the structure of the cosmic tree domain, and this was not something that Lu Lu could bear. Big Sis looked at the sword stele in the distance with interest. "Although my memories are hazy, I'm sure that I've seen that stele before. I remember that there was a guy who guarded that stele and he was Wu Tian's disciple. Wu Xing, the undying god of the 7 sky gods," Lu Yin replied. Big Sis was vexed. What happened back then? Everyone changed. I don't even remember how I became like this, but I'll definitely remember it one day. Soon Lu finished his report and gestured for Lu Yin and Big Sis to enter. It's not convenient for the family head to personally welcome you, so I hope you don't mind if I do. Lu Yin smiled. You and I are of the same generation. Brother Lu, please. Please. Not long after, Big Sis saw that the area around the sword steel was similar to how it had been in the past. This Lu family is quite hardworking. Lu replied, my family wakes up and sleeps every day just by looking at the sword steel. It's not hard at all. As long as we can achieve something in the way of the sword, external conditions mean nothing to us. Big Sis shook her head. He could not stand such a primitive way of life. Lu led Lu Yin all the way inside until they arrived at a rather large house. The house's fence was formed from sword edges, and the closer they got, the more they could feel the sharp aura. Sword chi is exposed. Is this the way of the sword that your Lu family has comprehended? Big Sis was disdainful. I'd like to thank my brothers for their constant support. Tomorrow is the day of the wedding. Let's be happy together. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you. Chapter 2393. Lu replied, this is a special place to receive outsiders. He then looked at Big Sis. We hope that everyone will see our Lu family that way. Big Sis sneered, that's unnecessary. Lu frowned as her attitude annoyed him. Lu Yin was helpless as well. Big Sis was like a pirate, and she had been the same when she had joined the Hall of Honor's board of directors. She didn't deliberately cause trouble, but she just didn't fit in with normal interactions. Only those from Leon's armada were suitable for her. Lu led Lu Yin and Big Sis into the house, where a middle-aged man was already standing. This person was Lu Du, the current head of the Lu family. Lu Yin entered and met Lu Du's eyes. For some reason he felt that Lu Du looked very familiar. Lu Du looked at Lu Yin with amazement and a strange feeling as if he was looking at a junior. It's been so many years. It's good that you're still alive, little seven. Lu Yin looked at Lu Du in confusion. Calling him little seven wasn't something that an ordinary person could call him. When he heard the words little seven, Lu Yin's gaze towards Lu Du changed. I'm sorry, I lost my memories. Lu Du sighed. I'm Little Stone's father. His name is Lu Shi, so you can call him fifth brother. Lu Yin's eyes widened. Fifth brother's father? At this moment he had a vague impression of the seven heroes. He recalled their appearances in the food paradise, and it was no wonder why Lu Du looked so familiar. He was very similar to the laughing fifth brother from his memories. Your fifth brother's father? Lu Du shook his head. Let's not talk about the past. It's good that you're alive. Don't worry, I'll do everything I can to help you, but there are some things that I can't help with. Who is this? Lu Yin calmed himself down and introduced. This is my sister. She was the one who saved me when I was stranded on the fifth mainland. Lu Du looked at Big Sis and said, thank you. His words were very sincere and anyone could hear it. Big Sis nodded and didn't speak like before. Little Seven is also my family. Lu Du smiled and gestured for them to sit. They all sat down and Lu Du went straight to the point. Little Seven, I'll do my best to help you, but there are some things that I can't help with. You sent Wang Wen, right? Lu Yin nodded. Yes. Then you should be clear about the Lu family's answer, Lu Du said bluntly. Lu Du's straightforwardness made Lu Yin feel comfortable, as it meant that Lu Du treated him as one of his own. There was no need for him to beat around the bush. Uncle Lu, I know what you're worried about. The most important thing for the cosmic tree realm right now is to maintain its balance. The four cardinal scales are at the back of the battlefield while you're at the outer realm. If this balance could be maintained, then I wouldn't have come looking for you. What are you trying to say? Lu Du asked. Wang Wen had looked for him and proposed to act as his agent. He had also proposed an alliance. At first he was tempted, but Bai Qi's words at the farm made them worry. The more they understood the four-way balance, the more worried they became. They were afraid that they would fight to the death. Just like when two people of equal combat strength fought, the coward was afraid of the ruthless, and the ruthless was afraid of the reckless. If they joined forces with Lu Yin's faction, they might be able to suppress the four directions scale, but if they really did so, it was very likely that they would all perish together. Bai Wang Yuan and the others had spent a lot of effort to exile the Lu family, and what they were after was not just a few decades of leadership. The four-way scales banished my Lu family to control the cosmic tree domain. What's the point of having four families controlling it? Lu Du's gaze turned cold. Although I've lost my memories from Lu Xiaoxuan's era, I've been here a few times. Long Qi and Yu Hao are my identities, and these identities allow me to be like a fish in water in the four-way balance, Lu Yin said. His words made Lu Du feel strange. Like a fish in water? But it was not that simple, it was practically a disaster. Uncle Lu, do you know why these identities allow me to play with the four-way balance? Lu Yin asked. Lu Du did not reply. Because these identities all have one thing in common. Lu Yin leaned forward and stared at Lu Du. Genius, a crushing genius. Lu Du's eyes narrowed as he met Lu Yin's gaze. Lu Yin said, Long Qi caused the White Dragon clan to lose face because the White Dragon clan placed him on a pedestal so high that they would abandon Long Ku's bloodline for him. Why? It's because ancestor Wuxia wants to take Long Seven as a disciple because of his unparalleled lock-breaking talent, not because of his contributions to the human race. The White Dragon clan sees a genius who can crush his peers in the future. Someone who has the potential to surpass the four sides of the scale. Yu Hao is even more so. His cultivation talent and lock-breaking talent both surpass Long Qi's, and he's also successful. The four-way balance saw the possibility of roping him in. Once roped in, he could surpass the other three families in the future. The four-way balance has always been thinking of ways to surpass the others. They're not willing to let the four families control the cosmic tree domain. Their main goal in banishing the Lu family was to replace them. Lu Du obviously knew what Lu Yin was talking about. No matter how they fight, they'll always be balanced. Lu Yin shook his head. You think too highly of yourselves, Uncle Lu. If I'm not wrong, the Lu family and the Lu family have long since formed an alliance to deal with the four-way balance. Once the four-way balance gains an advantage, they'll help the other side to maintain the balance, right? Lu Du didn't deny it. In fact, it's not just your two families. Ghost Abyss and the others might think that you're just balancing the cosmic tree domain, but I can guess that the four-way balance can do the same. Let me ask you, is your combined strength comparable to my Lu family's? Lu Yin asked. Lu Du's eyes flashed. Of course not. Lu Yin continued. If the four-way balance can think of ways to banish my Lu family, then there's no need to mention your family. The balance that you're trying to maintain seems more like a balance that the four-way balance is willing to allow you to maintain. Once one of them has the strength to break this balance, then whether it's the other three families or your family, everything will just be an illusion. Big Sis yawned. Lu Yin had said a lot and so had Lu Du, but their positions were different and they both had their own concerns. In the end, no one had been able to convince the other. Lu Yin had not expected to succeed right from the start. Wang Wen was even more eloquent than him, but he had also failed. Lu Yin's true goal in coming here was to plant a seed for the Lu family. This seed would sprout sooner or later, and even if the four-way balance did not want it to sprout, he would make it sprout. Little Seven, it's not easy for you to come here. Stay for a few days. Little Stone's house is still empty, Lu Du said as they walked out of the house. He was tired and he looked at Lu Yin strangely. Lu Xiaoxian had not been so eloquent in the past. Lu Yin was tired as well. Uncle Lu, I'd like to visit the sword steels. Lu Du replied, sure, you can visit whenever you want. Then can my sister take a look? Lu Yin asked. Big Sis looked at Lu Du. Lu Du hesitated. You can, but I'll have to talk to Elder Song first. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. I'd like to see Elder Song as well. I have some questions about sword techniques. Questions about sword techniques? Lu Du wanted to say that he could give Lu Yin some pointers, but after some thought he decided against it. This person in front of him was not just Lu Xiaoxian. He was also a progenitor who had forced by Wang Yuan and the others to come to an agreement. Although Lu Yin was only at the fourth origin tribulation stage, he could fight against a progenitor. He was not someone Lu Du could teach, and only Elder Song was qualified to do so. Alright, I'll help you. That day, Lu Yin and Big Sis stayed at the Lu family's residence. Lu Yin looked at the simple wooden house. This was Fifth Bro's house. He had lived here for many years and Lu Xiaoxian had definitely been here before. With mixed feelings, Lu Yin fell asleep. The next day he went to find Lu Yi, someone he had once blended in with. He was currently talking to Zhang Dingtian about something. Lu Yin could not reveal his identity, so he did not acknowledge Zhang Dingtian. As he approached Lu Yi, Zhang Dingtian looked at him warily and Lu Yi looked at him as well. Lu Yin smiled at them and walked past them. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, and on his 3rd step he was within 5 meters of Lu Yi. Lu Yin took out a needle from his cosmic ring and stealthily moved it. His perspective changed, and he controlled Lu Yi's body to take the needle and place it in the ring. Everything happened in an instant, and the needle had already entered Lu Yi's cosmic ring without him even realizing it. Lu Yin had thought about many things on his way to the Lu family, and the most important thing was Lu Song's identity. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Lu Song could not be left alone. However, he had no evidence to prove anything, so he could only rely on Lu Yi to do something. This was why he had asked Lu Song to give him pointers on sword techniques. At that time, most of the Lu family would appear, and Lu Yi would be no exception. Zhang Dingtun was puzzled as he watched Lu Yin leave. Who is he? Lu Yi was also puzzled. I've never seen him before, but that mole has quite a personality. Ignore him and continue. Zhang Dingtian did not mind. Lu Du had gone to look for Lu Song, but he had not appeared. Lu Yin was worried that Lu Song would simply not show up, but on the 3rd day, Lu Du had come looking for Lu Yin. Elder Song will be here soon. If you have any questions about swordsmanship, feel free to ask. He was naturally referring to Lu Xiaoxian. Lu Yin and Big Sis looked at each other and waited quietly. Not long after, the stooped Elder Song appeared. Lu Yin and Big Sis looked over, but there was nothing strange about him. This Elder Song was exactly the same as the one they had seen at Unbounded's headquarters, and there was no change in his expression. No, there was a hint of joy in his eyes. If I'd known that Long Qi was Lu Xiaoxian, I would have kept you here for a few more days. Lu Yin was polite. Greetings, Elder Song. Elder Song nodded and smiled. A year ago you played chess with Mu Shang and I saw how stable you were. Compared to Lu Xiaoshuan's era, you've climbed even higher and further. Very good. Lu Yin replied, thank you for your praise, Elder Song. I took on the 14th mission and offended the Lu family. Lu Song waved a hand. Lu Ku was a spy. Damn it, the Lu family has to thank you. He paused and then looked at Big Sis. You may visit the sword steel. Big Sis kept staring at Elder Song, a hint of fear in the depths of her eyes. Have we met before? Lu Song was puzzled. You've been to this region before? Just a year ago. Then we haven't. Today was the day of his wedding, and he was hiding in his room to write. Who cares if the outside world is in full swing? I'll continue writing today at 6:28 p.m., which is when the wedding begins. Brothers, let's be happy together. Thank you for your support, brothers. Chapter 2394. Big Sis continued to stare at Lu Song, and Lu Yin hurriedly stepped forward to block her. Elder Song, would you be able to guide this junior in sword techniques? Lu Song was confused. Lu Xiaoxian doesn't like sword techniques, but you do. Interesting. Unfortunately, I can't guide you with your current strength. Lu Yin replied, I was able to fight against a progenitor because I relied on external items and not my own strength. My true strength cannot compare to Elder Song's, and I would like to improve my sword techniques, especially the 13 swords. The 13 swords? Lu Du was stunned. Lu Ke and a few other elders of the Lu family had arrived as well, including Lu Yi. When Lu Song appeared, they all gathered around him, especially when they heard about the 13 swords. This was exactly what Lu Yin wanted. He glanced at Lu Yi and continued, I obtained the 13 swords from the sword steel and I was lucky enough to learn it. I want to create the 14th sword, but my talent is limited. It would be best if I could receive some guidance from Elder Song. The 13 swords were lost in the abandoned lands a long time ago. Are you from there? Lu Ke asked from a distance. Many members of the Lu family looked on in confusion. Zhang Dingtian was there as well and he frowned. Was this person from the 5th mainland? Quiet. Lu Du barked as he scanned his surroundings. Back off. The crowd slowly retreated. Lu Du's prestige in the Lu family was very high, just like how Wang Jingji was in the Wang family. Long Ku and Bai Ting could not compare to him, and even Lu Yi had to respect him. Lu Song was astonished. You want to create the 14th sword? Do you already have an idea? Lu Yin nodded. A little. I've created a prototype, but it seems to have gone astray. That's why I wanted to ask Elder Song for guidance. If you can help me create the 14th sword, then I'm willing to leave the 13 swords to the Lu family. Many members of the Lu family were excited and looked on expectantly. Wu Hao arrived. The 13 swords? Only the fifth mainland had the 13 swords and there were only a few people who knew them. After Lu Yin had released him, he had gone to the sword sect to interact with Lu Tianmu, but he had not been able to learn the 13 swords. How did this person know them? He looked at Lu Yin's back, but it seemed familiar. Could it be him? The 13 swords was very attractive to the Lu family, but it did not mean that it surpassed all the sword arts of the Lu family. In the eyes of the Lu family, there was no sword art that was absolutely invincible. They cared about the 13 swords because they cared about all the sword arts, not just the 13 swords. Lu Song calmly looked at Lu Yin. Alright, if that's the case, then display all of your sword techniques. I'll do my best to help you complete the 14th sword. Thank you, Elder Song, Lu Yin said. He then raised his hand and transformed his astral source into a sword that transformed into Lu Huang's personal sword. The 14th sword that Lu Yin was referring to was naturally Lu Huang's sword. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that Lu Huang might have taken the wrong path. It would be good if Elder Song could give him some pointers. Although this was not his main goal. In the surroundings, the cultivators of the Lu family watched closely. How many years had it been since Elder Song used his sword? Now that he finally did so, how could they let it go? More and more members of the Lu family gathered. Lu Hao stared at Lu Yin's back. It was too similar and it was definitely him. There were only a few people in the fifth mainland who knew the 13 swords, so it was definitely Lu Yin. He had actually come here and this region of space was about to fall into chaos again. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Lu Yin made the first move. This was the Lu family and his opponent was Lu Song, a half-ancestor. If Lu Song made the first move, others would think that Lu Yin was being too arrogant. Lu Song just stood there like a hunchbacked old man. He did not look like a swordsman at all. Lu Yin did not stand on ceremony and raised his hand. This was the first sword, which was the most basic of the 13 swords. Every subsequent sword was basically an extension of the first sword. When the first sword of the 13 swords was unleashed, the eyes of the surrounding Lu family cultivators lit up, especially those who were in lighters. This sword had inspired them. Lu Song casually raised his hand and tapped out with his index finger, causing a thump to ring out. There were many people who could use finger force to break through sword techniques, and Lu Yin often used finger force to break through his enemies' battle techniques. However, Lu Song's finger was not finger force, but rather a sword technique. He had used his finger in place of a sword, and even though it was clearly a finger, the sound of a sword striking out could be heard. In the direction that his index finger moved, the void was directly sliced apart, forming the shape of a sword. Sword finger technique. I never thought that Elder Song would directly use the sword finger technique. Is this person making Elder Song take him so seriously? Someone exclaimed. Lu Hao was bitter, but it was more than just serious. If they were not competing purely in terms of sword techniques, then no one in the entire Lu family would be a match for this person other than the ancestor. He looked at the hellworm that was dozing off on Lu Yin's shoulder. That should be the real thing. Many people in the astral tree realm had bought this type of pet, and it was said to be popular in the fifth mainland. However, this person's pet was the real deal. It was a progenitor. There was a soft thump as the blades clashed once more. Lu Yin had directly used the fourth sword, causing the space around him to ripple as he changed his own force field and the environment around him, creating the fourth sword's unique sword domain. Lu Song tapped out with his finger, and his fingertip trembled as multiple sword edges appeared, tearing through the fourth sword and stabbing towards Lu Yin's forehead. Lu Yin was relying on his fourth origin tribulation stage cultivation, while Lu Song did not use the power of a progenitor. Both of them were using the power of a fourth origin tribulation stage cultivator. The fourth sword was completely defeated. Lu Yin tilted his head and avoided the sword edges. He exclaimed, "Many people have broken through the 13 swords, but you're the first to do so with just your sword techniques alone." Lu Song laughed. "It's just the fourth sword. The true power of the 13 swords lies in the final sword. You can use it as much as you want. I heard that you used the 13th sword to injure Xia Ziheng in Shenwu Plain. I'm looking forward to it." Lu Yin's lips curled up as he stared at Lu Song. The 12th sword, profound intent. He had skipped the middle sword technique, which shocked many of the Lu family members. The power of this sword was far greater than the previous 4 swords. Lu Song's eyes lit up. Not bad. With this sword technique, even an enlighter can injure an emissary. This is the true power of the 13 swords. Unfortunately, it's still not enough. He clenched his fingers together and suddenly moved forward, pressing down with his palm. Lu Yin looked up. It was clearly a palm, but what he saw were 5 swords that were sharp enough to pierce through anything. In the distance, Big Sis raised her brows. Why did this sword technique seem so familiar? She had seen it before, but where had she seen it? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this old man was someone she knew. Lu Yin dodged to the side and Lu Song's palm descended. The 5 swords swept out and Lu Yin grabbed one of them. The blade was vertical and a vague sense of danger appeared in Lu Yin's mind. He saw a strange diagram form beside him and he heard someone exclaim, "Limitless sword technique." Was this another sword technique? Lu Yin's domain was constantly enveloping the area, and he could see that Lu Song no longer had that stooped appearance. This was clearly a sword that had been sealed away for many years, and it was now baring its fangs at Lu Yin. The limitless sword technique descended beside him, and Lu Yin stared at the strange diagram without moving. When he saw the diagram descend, Lu Song was shocked. "Get out of the way." Lu Yin attacked. There was no earth-shattering destructive power, nor was there any shocking battle technique. It was just a very ordinary attack, but it caused the limitless sword technique to stagnate and the diagram to stop moving. Lu Du was shocked. How was this possible? Even further away, Lu Yi's eyes widened. Lu Yin had actually broken through Elder Song's limitless sword technique? At this moment, Lu Song was the most shocked. The limitless sword technique was his signature technique and very few people could break through it. Only his ancestor had been able to do so. Who else in the entire astral tree domain could break through his limitless sword technique? This was the first time. Lu Song looked at Lu Yin with a puzzled expression. This was the first time he had lost his composure. Lu Yin's hand trembled as he gripped the sword hilt. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because he was withstanding an unimaginable amount of force. The so-called limitless sword technique was not just a simple sword technique. It was more like a fixed technique formed from sword techniques. It was a technique that could condense the void and cut through everything. This was the limitless sword technique. He had been able to see through it because he had comprehended the myriad weapons technique when he had viewed the sword steel. Dozens of years ago he had viewed the sword steel as Long Qi and comprehended the method to decipher 10,000 weapons. This allowed him to undergo a great transformation in the way of weapons. Not only could he use the Golian, but he could also control the way of the sword, the way of the saber, and even more complicated weapons as he wished. This was a gift from Wu Tian. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to see through the limitless sword technique. "Senior, take this." The 13th sword. Lu Yin sheathed his sword and disappeared. When he reappeared, his sword was already less than 100 meters away from Lu Song. No one had been able to clearly see when the sword had been slashed out. Only those who understood the 13th sword knew what had happened. A gust of wind blew past and Lu Song slowly raised his head, a sword with emotions. No wonder, no wonder. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Elder Song. Elder Song. The rest of the Lu family's disciples were worried. Lu Song raised a hand to silence them and looked at Lu Yin with admiration. "You're willing to leave this sword technique to my Lu family?" Lu Yin raised his sword again and pointed it at Lu Song. Many of the Lu family's disciples were furious. Lu Du was astonished. When had Lu Xian become so arrogant? "As long as Elder Song can help me perfect the 14th sword, I don't mind leaving it to the Lu family. There is no such thing as an invincible sword technique in this world, only an invincible person." Lu Song laughed. "An invincible person? Do you think you can achieve that?" "Of course, Elder Song, please enlighten me. This is the 14th sword." Lu Yin shouted and raised his hand, slashing out. Lu Song looked up and watched the sword slowly descend, but there was no reaction. Everyone stared at Lu Song. Lu Du even took a few steps forward. "Elder Song." Sometimes, the more there was no reaction, the more abnormal it was. They were worried that Lu Yin's attack would be too powerful and heavily injure Elder Song. However, Elder Song didn't react. He looked at Lu Yin and shook his head helplessly. "So that's how it is. Sorry, I can't perfect it for you at the moment." Lu Yin frowned. How could there be no reaction? The 14th sword had come from Emperor Lu and it was called the Sword of Bitterness. It was actually the same as the 13th sword, the emotional sword, but one drew upon emotions while the other drew upon bitterness. That was why he had said that the 14th sword had gone astray and wasn't the true 14th sword. Now that the 13th sword had injured Lu Song, why was there no reaction from the 14th sword? It sounded like he had understood the 14th sword, but why wasn't he injured? Impossible. Wedding at 6:28 p.m. I'll update at the same time. Thank you for your support, thank you. Chapter 2395. Perhaps some people could be considered heartless, but there was no one in this world who was free of suffering. Even those who were born rich would experience the pain of loneliness, and the most terrifying pain was the pain of loneliness. Elder Song, are you all right? Lu Yin asked. Lu Song coughed and waved his hand tiredly. I'm fine, but I can't help you. Times have changed and only you can complete the 14th sword. I'm tired, so I'm going back to rest. Big Sis raised a brow. Go back? How could that be? She looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin frowned and glanced at Lu Yi's position. Lu Yi was quite far from Elder Song, so it would be useless even if he had a needle, but he wasn't far from Lu Yin. With that thought in mind, he stealthily took a few steps towards Lu Yi and asked, Elder Song, are you really all right? Lu Song waved his hand and Lu Du hurried forward to support him. At this moment, Lu Yin was within 5 meters of Lu Yi. He controlled Lu Yi's body and walked forward. Elder Song, let me help you. In just a few steps, Lu Yi was already 5 steps away from Lu Yin, and Lu Yin's consciousness returned to his body. Lu Yi was confused. Why wasn't he at his original position? Before he could react, Lu Song nodded. Then you can help me back. Lu Du, take them to the sword steels. Lu Du nodded and said to Lu Yi, Elder, I'll have to trouble you to take Elder Song back. Lu Yi subconsciously walked towards Lu Song, but he didn't know what was going on. Had he moved? Why didn't he remember? Lu Song was about to leave with Lu Yi's support. Big Sis grew anxious and tried to stop them. Lu Yin gave her a look, telling her not to move. He walked towards Lu Song and Lu Yi. Seniors, are you really all right? The 13th and 14th swords are unbreakable and I can't control their strength. Lu Du looked at Lu Yin. Elder Song is fine. If you want, you can leave the 13 swords behind. If you don't, then so be it. Lu Yin didn't have the time to deal with Lu Du, and he had already arrived in front of Lu Song and Lu Yi. He raised his foot and landed on the ground, his vision changing as he merged into Lu Yi's body and stopped supporting Elder Song. Elder Song didn't notice, and Lu Yi didn't hesitate to pull out a needle from his cosmic ring. No one would have thought that Lu Yi would make a move on Lu Song. Even if they asked all the Lu clan disciples, no one would believe it. But now it had really happened. The needle pierced through Lu Song's heart and passed through his body. Blood dripped from the tip of the needle onto the ground. Lu Yin didn't use the slippers as he was afraid that the slippers would kill Lu Song. If that happened, he would become the Lu family's mortal enemy, as the slippers were too obvious. They belonged to him and he was the only one who had such a weapon. Lu Yi. Lu Du shouted sternly, his gaze cracking. The surrounding Lu family disciples were at a loss. Lu Yin's vision changed, and he returned to his body as he stared intently at Lu Song. Big Sister was the same. Lu Yi regained consciousness and blankly looked at the needle in his hand. What was going on? He raised his head and met Lu Song's gaze. What he saw was a pair of deep scarlet eyes. Scarlet? Lu Song sent a palm strike towards Lu Yi, but at the critical moment, Lu Yin used the plan's secret art and shifted Lu Yi's position the moment Lu Song attacked. Lu Song's palm missed and his gaze swept towards Lu Yin. The terrifying scarlet eyes in the depths of his eyes landed in front of Lu Yin and many others, including Lu Du. That color. He was all too familiar with scarlet. Anyone who could become the head of the Lu family had to have experienced the battlefield on the other side of the battlefield. And this color was engraved in his memory. A corpse king. You really are from the everlasting tribe, Lu Yin barked, raising his hand and sending out an empty palm strike. This emptiness palm was accompanied by palm realm battle force and overlaying stacks, and it caused Lu Yi's scalp to go numb. Big Sister raised her hammer and smashed it down. Lu Song stared at Lu Yin. You're the one who's controlling Lu Yi. You have the ability to control people. He shifted his body and allowed the emptiness palm to hit him. The emptiness palm missed and passed through his body. Big Sister's hammer also smashed into the ground, causing the ground to tremble. Lu Yin gritted his teeth. It was this move again. In the mortal realm, this guy had used this move to escape. This time he could not let him escape. The hellworm soared from Lu Yin's shoulder and suddenly returned to its original size. It covered the sky and covered the entire Lu family under its pressure. It stared at a corner where Lu Song was standing. "If I want to leave, you can't stop me," Lu Song said, his voice ancient and completely different from before. This voice caused Big Sister to have a flash of inspiration and she blurted out, "Wuxing." Lu Yin was shocked. "Wuxing?" Big Sis shouted, "That's right, he's Wu Tian's adopted son Wuxing. I remember now, no wonder he was able to break through my battle technique. No wonder that sword technique seems so familiar. It was Wuxing who had used it before." Lu Song looked at Big Sister in astonishment. "An old friend? Who are you?" Big Sister did not waste any time and smashed her hammer down. "Skyshock Hammer, an old friend from the Above Heaven sect." Lu Song's voice began to sound lazy, exactly the same as the undying god that Lu Yin had seen. Lu Yin had not expected Lu Song to be the undying god. No, it should be the undying god's half-ancestor body. "Uncle Lu, kill him. He's one of the 7 sky gods." Lu Du could tell even without Lu Yin's reminder. Although he was not familiar with the name Wuxing, he had heard the words old friend from the Above Heaven sect. It was not simple for someone from the Above Heaven sect to be an old friend. "Disciples of the Lu family, back off. Activate the array and protect the sword steel." Above Lu Song, the caged worm slashed down with its claw, its progenitor power sweeping out in all directions. Under the power of a progenitor, even a half-ancestor from the 7 sky gods was nothing. However, the result was completely different from what the Lu family had expected. Lu Yin had expected Lu Song to be completely unharmed. How had he done it? "No, he's injured," Big Sister exclaimed as she stared at Lu Song. "His aura has changed." Lu Yin raised his head and shouted at the caged worm, "Keep attacking and tear him apart." He had not expected Lu Song to be the undying god's half-ancestor body. It was no wonder why the 14th sword had been ineffective against him. He was not alone, and the effects of the 13th sword had been faked. The caged worm roared at the sky and slashed down with its claw once more. Lu Song continuously dodged. Lu Yin and Big Sister's attacks were useless, but he could not completely ignore the caged worm's progenitor power. How could a half-ancestor's body ignore the power of a progenitor? Even if this person was one of the 7 sky gods. In the Lu family, with the sword steel as the center, rays of sword chi soared into the sky and gradually enveloped the entire Lu family. The people who were lining up in the distance to view the sword steel were shocked. Since ancient times, the Lu family's array formation had rarely been activated, so much so that this region of space had forgotten that the Lu family also had an ancestor and a protective array formation. The Lu family's array formation originated from the Lu family's own primordial Zhentian. This primordial Zhentian had used the killing intent of his sword as a focal point to form a sword net that covered the entire sky. Even a half-ancestor would not be able to escape from this sword net, and the moment they touched it, they would have to endure the killing intent of dozens of half-ancestors. In theory, no half-ancestor would be able to withstand such an attack, and even a progenitor would have to be careful. Lu Song looked up at the sword net and saw the caged worm above him. Around him, Lu Yin and Big Sister were staring at him. He sighed. "Can't you just let me quietly guard the martial steel? This is my duty in the first place." "Forget it, since that's the case." At this point, he suddenly stared at Lu Yin. "Let's get rid of a scourge first." His body then disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was right in front of Lu Yin. Starting from the bottom of his feet, swords extended out, forming a forest of swords in the blink of an eye. This was the inner world of the undying god's half-ancestor body, the forest of swords. Lu Yin continuously retreated as the caged worm's progenitor power swept out from above him. However, Lu Song forcefully resisted the progenitor power and arrived in front of Lu Yin. He then smiled at Lu Yin. "Actually, I want to die as well, but unfortunately you can't kill me." With that, the forest of swords instantly pierced towards Lu Yin. There was no escape. Lu Yin did not try to escape, and he instead raised a hand to block Lu Song, who was right in front of him. If one is born in the heavens, they are bound to overturn the heavens. Once he said this, regardless of whether it was Lu Song or the surrounding forest of swords, they were all suppressed. It was as if an invisible force was suppressing them. This was something that even a progenitor could not accomplish. The moment the overturning sky palm appeared, the ground and even the heavens trembled. Even the fifth mainland trembled slightly. At the same time, a figure walked out from outside the sovereign realm. He entered the sovereign realm by himself and looked lazily at the Lu family. His figure flickered as he quickly moved towards the astral tree domain. Undying God, stay behind. The dragon ancestor appeared and opened his eyes. His strange pupils stared straight ahead, causing the void to be obliterated and an indescribable darkness to form. The undying God dodged. How dangerous. Dragon 2, you can't stop me. The dragon ancestor was shocked. He couldn't find Lu Yin? Xianxia appeared and his divine martial sword domain descended. His divine martial astral energy formed a chain that headed in a certain direction. The undying God walked out from there, but he shook his head and raised his foot again. Bai Wang Yuan appeared and the clouds covered the entire sovereign realm. Finally, even Wang Fan appeared. With a wave of his hand, countless black ropes appeared from the void, seemingly turning the entire sovereign realm into a black rope prison. The undying God was trapped in a cage, unable to escape no matter what he did. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. Destroy him as soon as possible. Bai Wang Yuan shouted. The four of them attacked at the same time, but at that moment, the undying God's body dissipated as if he had never appeared. Xiaoxinji's eyes narrowed. He avoided time. Not good. Wang Fan was about to chase after him when a pair of giant eyes appeared behind him. It was the corpse god. She raised a hand and waved it towards the sovereign realm, causing numerous figures to appear. A great battle between progenitors had erupted. In the central realm, Lu Song's body was being pressed down by the caged WRM's claws. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. He had used the overturning sky palm to suppress Lu Song, causing a momentary opening that the caged WRM had grasped and prevented him from escaping. Lu Yin didn't know how Lu Song had managed to ignore everyone's attacks, but he couldn't escape now. He bent down and was about to say something when Lu Song's body suddenly exploded, not even leaving behind a corpse. The undying God walked out from above Lu Yin's head and looked down at him. His shadow covered Lu Yin and everything fell silent. Thank you, brothers, for your support. From today onwards, I'll start a new life. Thank you.